Hi everyone, my name is Aaron and welcome back to the RA21 podcast. And with me here today is none other than Ryan. How have you been doing, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just living life as usual, nothing special going on. But I think in the podcast today, we've got something really special going on. We've got two very special guests that came on board.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've both been talking to both of them, I think, for quite some time, and we regard them as friends. And it's none other than Azlan and Sher from We Are Money Darlings from the Instagram channel. And, as some of you listeners actually even know them because I'm pretty sure that, a lot of our audience actually do follow them as well as Instagram. And they are actually pretty focused on couple finance, right? So I would like to invite both of them to our podcast today. And how have you been doing, Azlan and Sher?
We are great. And we're actually really excited to finally be on this podcast. We've been speaking to Aaron and Ryan on separate occasions, I think, since a long time. And we've always wanted to actually join this podcast, and finally we made it. So we're really excited.
Yeah, Ryan and Aaron, thanks for having us. Let's have a good podcast.
Yeah, man. So, guys, I think all of us here actually talk quite a bit about like investing, lah. Because I think all four of us are pretty much quite heavy in terms of like investing over the last 2 years, especially right since the market crash, then the bull market, then now the market is back down again. But I think most times, right, when we talk about investing, right, a lot of this particular topic is pretty much, I feel, underspoken about, and that is actually like investing in your relationships in life.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things about relationships, right, is none other than your life partner, right? And I think I think me and Ryan, we try to follow quite a number of financial influencers, and then it's actually very, very difficult for us to find, right, a couple, number one, they're good in finance, and number two, they're, very publicly sharing their journey in investing and as well as personal finance. So I think like the first question, right, is like, both of you, from our observation and through our conversations have already shown that, pretty much is both of you are very good on growing yourself. And the first question I'd like to ask you, right, is that do you both think that, or how has both of you, right, impacted each other in terms of your investment as well as your life? Like, when both of you met, right, how much of importance do you actually place in terms of the relationship which you have together? And how important is it? And how has it impacted both of you? Maybe, Shil, you'd like to go first?
I think that when it comes to what you do in life, no matter how you go about it, your relationship is always going to be at the center of your life. So it will always have some kind of impact on what you do. So that is why the kind of partner that you choose is very important. Basically, your partner will be the person other than yourself that you'll spend the most amount of time with. That's for sure. So you want to make sure that you are actually spending it with the right person. So that's first. And if just say your partner is in a good place, let's say psychologically, emotionally, financially, like eventually the benefits will spill over to you. So that is why, like for me, I think it's very important the type of partner that you choose, because they will directly and indirectly have an impact on every other aspects of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Then how about you, Azan? Like, I'm not sure whether it's a good, way to express it, but I guess like, how much has Sure like impacted you in terms of your own personal growth as well as your investment journey? Because I recall that, when we did have conversations together, right, that you did mention that Sure was actually the person who actually like, spurred you towards growth investing.
Let me first answer it generally, then I'll tell you my experience with Sher. So, like Sher said, your partner is the most important investment in your life because you'll be spending the most amount of time with them. And the reason why, because it's actually good for growth, your personal growth, that you have found the right partner. Because if they're doing the right things, let's say they're growing themselves emotionally, the benefits will spill over to you. Let's say someone gets better when it comes to emotional maturity, the other partner will likely get better too if they're motivated to become better. Now, because you asked directly in relation to Sher, actually it was not growth investing. She actually introduced real estate investing to me.
She introduced real estate investing to you. So before that, what were
Yes.
you like investing in?
So I was investing in stocks. I had a little bit of experience in forex as well. Not too bad, not too great, but just decent. and I just had side businesses. But it was Shireen who actually introduced real estate investing to me, and I introduced growth investing. I mean, in terms of stocks, to Shireen. But what it did, although like we were decent in our, let's say Shireen was decent when it came to real estate investing, and I was decent when it comes to growth stocks or stock investing. But because we both were providing each other with something valuable, something good, and this is the basis, upon which our relationship was made. From the beginning, we knew that, hey, a relationship is made on providing each other something valuable, something good. It's just not about love. We didn't even know what love was in the beginning of our connection, our friendship or anything like that. We were, hey, I need to provide to this individual, she in return provides to me. And that's how our relationship was built up. Actually, I might go a little bit deeper. I was just telling this to Shireen that they were like, before, the girls I dated or the girls I was with, I loved them, but I did not respect them. But I respected you when I met you and after our experiences, because all that happened between us when it came to actions was related to growth, whether it's emotional growth, financial growth, psychological growth. And that's why we came to a point where we were like, hey, we need to get married, because there's nothing more I need in a person that I get from you. So we were getting everything we needed from each other and coming to the same point. That's why marrying the right person and being with the right person is crucial, because either it can just change your life or maybe make it worse.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I think among the four of us, both of you are married. Ryan and I are not yet. But I
What's
guess
what's
like,
causing the delay?
Oh, you sound like my mom.
No, I sound like your girlfriend.
yeah, but I guess that's a good question, lah. Like, I mean, Azan did ask a very fair question. What's actually causing the delay when, like, both of you are ready, right? So, Ryan, how about you? Like, I think, like, I mean, you've been in a relationship for how many years?
It's a bit more than just 4 years.
4 years. So, I mean, it's been
Congratulations.
So
yeah,
thanks.
congratulations, right? So it's like, I guess, like, do you feel the same way, like what Sher and Azan has shared
Yeah,
with you?
definitely. I echo whatever they just said. Like when one person who's like financially, psychologically, and emotionally well, that wellness tends to spill over to to the partner. But at the same time, if there's like a negative side, and it does influence the other partner as well. So it's like vice versa, two-way thing, give and take. So like we've talked a lot about, like in previous podcasts, right, about investing in stocks, about investing in like ourselves for in terms of like careers and other aspects. But we also like in this episode, right, we are talking about like the one of the most important investments in our life, which is like our partners and the people who we choose to surround ourselves with. And specifically, like, the quote when people say that the people that you surround yourself with is like a reflection of your own personality. And in the case of like your partner, right, I think that is like the most clearest reflection, because that's going to be like the closest person you are with, naturally speaking. So like, do you want to be that kind of person? And or if you want to be like whatever kind of person, it makes me strive to grow, have that drive to actually like improve myself financially, in terms of my career and all that. That's kind of like my driving force. And that's why I think like the right partner will actually make you move into a better direction into life and improving your life in general.
Yeah, I think you made a very valid point. You, Sher, and Azan actually made all very valid points. That like in a relationship, right? It's like if both parties bring to the table like different skill sets, and what you realize is that like as what Azan has shared, he came from a background of stock investing, and Sher came from a background of real estate investing. Then when you manage to like find your partner, right, who's good in one area that you might not be in, right, then eventually what happens is that the relationship gets better because both of you can learn from each other. And I think Azan touched on a very important point, and that is, in a relationship, it's very important that both parties actually continue to grow with each other, then over time, right, the relationship ship does get better over time, right? And then also, I guess like another thing that we like to talk about, which is the next topic, and that is about financial values, right? Because like um personally, right, also like I do have clients, and also personally myself, right, in my experience, right, sometimes I think one of the biggest like issues I have in my previous relationships are the important is about the key factors of like financial values. All right. And then when we say financial values, right, it might be things like, both, parties might not come from the same background, and, do you think that based on your experience, right, maybe we can direct the question to Azan first this time. And do you think that financial values, right, how important are they, right, in a relationship?
Okay. Well, let's first look at financial value. From the core. Basically, it means how do you see money, right? And there are good and bad financial values. Uh, but let me give an example. Let's say uh, there's a couple. One of the partners is a saver and a conscious spender, whereas the other partner is just a spender. Now, imagine this dynamic. Can they have a happy relationship unless they share the right financial value? Because one partner feels like, hey, it's right to spend, but it's also good to save, whereas the other partner is just a spender. That's why good financial values are key in having a fruitful and healthy long term relationship. And we can't deny it because money will touch almost all aspects of our life, whether we like it or not. And the good part is that if you're on the same page when it comes to the right financial values, not only will this help you become closer because you share the same ideology in a way, but you will also get ahead financially. In my experience with clients, most of the times people can do way better in their financially if their partner is on board, whereas most of the time the partner is not on board. Like recently we have a client who is trying to save 30-40% of her income so that she can pursue financial freedom in the end, whereas the partner is contributing not even a percent. So now imagine different financial values. Can you get ahead financially? Forget financially, can you even get ahead emotionally together, psychologically together? Can you have a good relationship? That's why financial values are extremely important.
Yeah, man. Actually, I felt that. My gosh, I felt that. Yeah, that was
Why?
a
You have
very
a story
like.
to share with us?
I mean, I guess like like I guess like people who are very like driven to excel at an early age, right? I think what you will realize is that a lot of them are very careful with money in their 20s, right? Like I realized that this is a very common trait. So like when you mentioned that part about like a person who wants to save like 40%, right? Then if the partner is not on the same page, right? I would think that quite a number of listeners right there, right? I think a lot of these people can actually relate. Like sure, how about you? Like Azan did mention like financial values, the importance of it, right? Like personally from your experience, right, how much do you think like have you been through like issues, relationships, right, where financial values are not aligned, and have you been able to address them?
I The best example I could give is actually of my own. So in my past relationship, whenever I was meeting someone new, the things that I would look out for are like, for example, okay, similarities in terms of how our upbringing, how our upbringing are, or how we look at different things in life. Everything except for money. And what happened was, as I grew financially, my partners were not growing together with me. Now, although I'm happy that I'm actually improving my finances day by day, it was hard for me to be completely happy knowing that my partner is not growing with me. It almost feels like I'm leaving them behind. But at the same time, it's not true because I've tried my best to get them on the same page, but we just can't see eye to eye and we can't move forward together financially. So years after those relationship ended, then that was when I realized that if finances is going to be a huge part of my life, like Azan mentioned, it will touch almost every aspect of your life. If it's going to be that important, then I have to make sure that whoever I want to be in a relationship with, whoever I want to start a family with, have to also have similar financial values with me, and those become, you can say, like the core criteria, you can say, that I look for in my future partner since then. So yeah, like basically, if you look at it, some people might look at it and say that, oh, it's a little bit it's a little bit very what do you call practical, but I like you to look at life in a practical manner. Your relationship is actually very similar to a business partnership. If one partner treats money badly, the overall partnership is in trouble. You can't make a business successful when you have two people that have opposing values. The same way with relationship. If you have opposing values, forget getting financially ahead. You can't even get close in the relationship. So yeah, like I think people underplay most of the time the importance of financial values, but I think it's one of the most important things to look out for.
Yeah, man, I like seriously, sure, I really agree with that. Even from my own personal experience, right? What I realized over time is that the more financially aligned both of you are in terms of your values, right? I realized that relationships can be a lot easier if you both come from fundamentally the makeup of your character towards money, and I think like um as both of you rightfully mentioned, right? Like finances really is pretty much a very huge topic, right? Which a lot of relationship, a lot of people actually shy away from. Like couples, right? Sometimes, right? It's not like personality wise, they can be personality wise, they might enjoy the time together, right? They might love each other, etc. But I think Azan mentioned about the term, the respecting each other's viewpoint, and then also respecting each other's goals. It's a very important factor that not many couples actually do address, or even like take a step back, right? And then actually like ask themselves the question, because like having a very long-term relationship is very important. Both of you do respect each other's long-term goals, right? And eventually what I do realize over time is that the most successful couples tend to be couples who always have a goal in their life, right? They tend to know what they want to achieve maybe in the next 5, 10 years. Like from personal experience, right? Sometimes, both couples, right, might grow at a different speed. Like one might be like growing super fast, one might be growing a little bit slower, and I think all end of the day, right, I think both parties, right, must have very good communication towards each other for this. And I think like the next question we had to ask, right, is that why is it, right, especially in Asian context, because we're in Southeast Asia, right, why is it that even maybe this time I'll ask you, Ryan, do you feel that um not just like broadly, right, but yourself itself, do you feel that you have issues discussing problems about finances in your relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I think like finances are our personal finances and like our financial goals generally, if they are not like agreeing eye to eye between the couple, it can be like a very heavy and difficult topic to talk about. And it also really depends on like whether the boyfriend or the girlfriend values money as heavily as the other counterpart does. So like say for myself, right? I'm actually kind of like a cheapskate, right? So sometimes, I'm kind of like cheap. I don't like to spend too much on like clothes. I rather spend all the money on like buying like a Tesla stock or like some crypto. Uh, you know and like I think this is kind of like the point where um being in a healthy relationship helps, because like my girlfriend, for example, she does remind me from time to time that you can't that I cannot survive on like just by drinking water alone. I need to eat. There's like a basic line to like to basic needs that I need to address, aside from like buying some clothes, buying some and to me, like she's like a cornerstone to me, to not forget why am I actually investing or like growing my money in that sense, if that makes sense. But coming back to the question, right, like why so many couples have this problem to actually discuss like finances, right? It's because like sometimes they don't see eye to eye in terms of like their goals, right? And like especially for young couples, I feel the Gen Zers, nowadays there's a lot of temptations out there for you to spend money, be it like fashion, clothes, luxuries, or like a trip to Bali, and like very expensive brunches at overpriced cafes, that kind of stuff. I think it's okay to like kind of like treat yourself to these things like once in a while, but um generally, like some people enjoy these things more. They like to spend, as what Azan has mentioned. Some are like just pure spenders where they don't actually think about saving money, and some are kind of like cheapskate people like me who just wants to save and invest all the time. And I think like that's why it can be really difficult to talk about when their stances are like kind of like on the opposite end. And like definitely I think it's a conversation to have, definitely. And eventually like it's not like you have that talk and like after like 1 or 2 days, things sort itself out and like your couple starts the couple starts to save money and invest or whatever. It's kind of like a long-term process. And you have that talk. The people in the boyfriend or the girlfriend has to sit on like the content that you talk about in the discussion for a long time, and it's not going to be pleasant. And that's why like I think generally it's like a painful process of like a few months to years maybe even, and that's why like people just generally don't like having these kind of discussions, I feel.
It's very
Yeah,
uncomfortable, right?
yeah, that's true. And I like if I look at this from like from the core again. I think all of these like problems that people face when discussing finances actually stem from one thing, which is fear. So it's either fear of being judged by a partner on your past mistakes, like money mistakes, or fear of confronting those mistakes and eventually changing.
Oh, that's
So
really
when
powerful.
I love that. I love that. It's a very, very good point, Azan.
So I mean, you don't want to be judged by a partner, and let's say if your partner is has a tendency to judge, you don't want to talk about money. And at the same time, you don't want to confront those mistakes as well, because when you confront mistakes, you need to change, and change is fearful. It's like not fearful, but like is scary.
How about you, sure? Like, I guess, Azan, you mentioned a very good point, which is like fear, right? And then like confronting it, right? Like, sure, like you mentioned that, I guess, maybe you can give an example yourself. Like, in your relationship with Azan, right? Do you feel like you had to challenge yourself? Like, because, you come from the real estate background, then Azan came from like stocks and investing. In what area do you felt like you were challenged to confront, I guess, new things in the relationship?
Okay, like I can understand, like if a person were to be in my situation and they might feel like, okay, since I do not know a lot about this thing, I don't feel really comfortable sharing the extent of my lack of, say, stock investing knowledge. So before going forward, like what Azan said just now, I want to add another point. When talking about fear, I think another thing about being fearful about being judged by your partner is a lot of times people are also uncomfortable to let others know that they actually don't know enough, that they actually do not have the kind of financial knowledge and skills that is deemed adequate. So I can understand, going back to my example, that somebody in my position might have felt like, okay, I don't really know a lot about stock investing. Should I even talk about this? Because then it would just reveal to my partner that, hey, like I actually don't know, I don't know a lot. But for me, I took it as an opportunity to learn. I say, hey, learning about stock investing is not easy. You can, either learn from books, from podcasts, from different kinds of YouTube channel, but still it's very difficult to discern which is the right information, which is not. And here in front of me, I have a very, very good learning opportunity. Do I now worry about my ego, or do I now jump on this opportunity to learn? So that was the part where I decided that it is more important for me to learn this extra skill of making money than actually being fearful of judge that I don't actually have much knowledge on this matter. So it became a point that it became a starting point that made me realize that every time there is something that I feel like I do not know enough, or I feel like I'm not very sure if my opinions or my decisions are correct, I would the first second I would like to put it forward to Azan and ask his opinion about it, because I feel if you can do that on a regular basis, just collectively in the relationship, you just make better financial decisions, you make less mistakes, and you get financially ahead so much quicker, if you do that. And I think the most important thing about being more comfortable about talking about money, about confronting your own lack of knowledge or mistake, is actually just establish a non-judgmental space in the relationship that says, hey, everything that we're going to share here is for the purpose of learning and growth, for the purpose of making financial decisions. Anything that we share are not to be used for personal attacks. And I think if you can do it that way, then money talks just becomes easier, and you can do it more frequently than what's happening right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, like you, wow, you really touch upon a very like some of the things right that you touch on is ego, right? I do feel like in some of the relationships, some of my friends, right, and the relationships I've seen, right. I guess one of the biggest like roadblock, right, in terms of growing the relationship is really about the ego, right, versus the opportunity to learn. If you can actually like find a place, right, as you mentioned, like developing a safe space for both parties, right, where it's basically just to, come together, have a very like upfront conversation, right, and not to use whatever you say as personal attack, then I think that it becomes a very like fruitful relationship, right? Because if
Yes.
you can have that like, every day, 24/7, especially if you're married, right, then eventually, the relationship becomes a very, very good one and a very fruitful one, because it's like you no longer have to worry so much about, you don't have to worry about having like second thoughts about sharing what's on your head. Then you don't have to worry about like
Yes.
emotionally whether or not are you going to be attacked, are you going to be judged, and that is something which I guess is actually very powerful in terms of like your life, because sometimes it's very difficult to have that even with your own parents, and like even your siblings. Sometimes it is difficult to have that conversation with yourself, right? But sometimes people do need the listening ear, and then if you have a partner who's able to like give you that support or even like understand, right, then that makes you grow a lot faster as a person, right? And then that's why I feel like both of you mentioned all this, right, is so important. And that is also like that also actually brings us to the next point, right? And that I'm very sure like not all relationships are perfect, right? Like for Azan and Sure, um do you like basically from your experience, right, there are many times, right, I think in a relationship where you do have disagreements, and how do you actually better deal with them, in respects to financial goals? Maybe Azan, you would like to take that?
Before answering, I actually want to say I didn't know Shireen looked at me as an opportunity.
So, guys, we're uncovering opportunities this podcast and episode.
Yeah.
You
No, I
see?
mean, it's actually a really good way. I mean, you can look at another person as an opportunity to learn rather than an opportunity to take advantage. So, I get Shireen's point. But coming back to your question, actually, I think disagreements are great because disagreements give you the chance to discuss. If there's no disagreements, there's probably going to be no discussion. So, as long as both partners are motivated to make better decisions, disagreements are great, and you should have as many disagreements as you can. But then the question comes, hey, okay, if you're disagreeing, which option or which choice should we agree on? So then you need to think, hey, okay, where is the disagreement coming from? What's the reasoning behind it? Is it logical or not? So explain to each other your logic regarding your choice, and then the question comes, so how does one decide which partner's reasoning or choice is better? So if you just look at it through the lens of financial goals, then the decision or the choice that brings you closer to them is the better one. Just like Naval, I think everybody knows who Naval is, the successful angel investor and modern philosopher. He also says the same thing: choose the option that makes long-term sense instead of going for the short-term gain. So if in the long term it makes sense financially, choose that option, and then there's something that good that comes out of disagreements.
I noticed that both of you always manage to frame like they always say, right, whenever there is a problem that comes to you, you either frame it positively or negatively. And in this very short discussion we've had so far, right, I really noticed that both, you Azan and Shara, both of you actually tend to take the route, right, where you tend to always frame issues as opportunities to get better and grow. And that's not something which I realize, right, that people, some people do have trouble with it lah. Like whenever there's an issue, right, you can either choose the route, right, where you either see as a problem or opportunity to grow from. And that's when, Arjun, you mentioned about like, when there's a lot of problems, right, then there's another way where you can actually like take a look at the relationship and get better from it. Like I guess like the next person I would like to ask is Sure, right? Like maybe do you have any examples, right, which you can personally share? It can be from your relationship or from people that you meet, right? Like what are some of the ways, right, where you can better deal with disagreements in financial goals? Like, do you have like disagreements with Azan, during your relationship in financial goals, or was it always from the beginning, right, smooth sailing because you actually found a person whose goals is very aligned?
We rarely have disagreements when it comes to financial goals, but we might have the disagreements when it comes to how we get there. How do we get to those financial goals? Because coming from different backgrounds, coming from learning about finances on our own, so we might have different viewpoints of what is the best ways to say get to our particular financial goal. And that is actually, like, just like Azan said, like, for us, we look at it as an avenue to actually make better financial decisions. Like, for example, if I think that X method is the best for us to say hit a certain amount by a certain amount of time, then but I like if I think the X method is better and he thinks that Y methods are better, so we're gonna list down why we think those methods are good, and actually look through, are there any areas that we're missing out? Because as humans, it's very easy for you to look at something, think that it's a good thing, and find all the reasons to support that thing. So we are the worst person rely on when it comes to getting rid of our biases. So we play that role for each other. So if I say that I think this is good for so reason, and he's like, oh no, but you're forgetting this and you're forgetting this, and there's something better. So that's a really good chance for me to say, hey, look, not only I realize that there's a better method, I learned something, but it also makes me realize certain biases that I have that I could avoid in my future, decision making. So I think it's all about how, I think Aaron, you mentioned earlier, like how you frame something is really important. I think it applies to disagreement. I've seen a lot of people who avoid disagreements because they feel like it is something very uncomfortable. So instead of confronting, let us just tiptoe around it, and that is more comfortable for the relationship. But it will bite you in the back eventually. So I think that disagreements, if you can look at it as a chance to grow, to make better financial decisions, you actually look forward to it in some ways, because you're like, hey, here's another opportunity to fast track my way into achieving that goal together with my partner. So that's how I see disagreement, and that's how we manage disagreements in our finances, and I think I can also say in our daily lives.
I actually want to add this to something over here. Now, the problem is actually not disagreements. The problem is most people don't have disagreements. That's why there's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to improve on. They never talk about it. They're in debt. Most couples are in debt. Most couples are like lavishly spending on credit cards. I mean, from our experiences with our clients, they just have no disagreements. They're just winging life the way it is. They think it's all normal. So actually, we should encourage disagreements. Fight with each other, not physical fights. Just you know, like discuss, talk, fight, because basically it just helps you to look what's wrong and what needs to be changed and how we can make our life better. If you can look at
Actually,
it this way,
yeah, I think you made a very good point. We actually should reframe the question, right? Instead of like how to better deal with disagreements, so we should actually like see it as a positive light, and how to encourage discussion on disagreements.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah. I
actually a
mean,
very,
like
very good point.
maybe our answers are a little biased because I'll tell you why. Because it's been like we've known each other for 5 years. I think for 5 years now, and since we started our relationship or our connection, our friendship, we've always just looked at things in a positive way. There's nothing bad, basically. It's just positive. You have to look at it that way. So we always try to find, like you said, an opportunity, a positive opportunity out of everything. So maybe it'll be good if someone can provide, a different viewpoint where they're not looking at it positively. Maybe they sometimes it's good to look at things, what you call, from a negative light to make someone aware of the problem. So this is not the only way to do things in life when it comes to finance. Couple finance.
I guess like thing that I can share that I do personally in my relationship, right, is that we tend to actually like take a step back at least once every month or at least once every quarter and look at our financials together, and then we actually plan ahead. So usually every quarter we will actually like at least review our finances, and then like sit down, look at the spreadsheet, and then figure out whether or not like we're actually done well in terms of report card lah. Because I mean, like in a relationship, it's not just about numbers, of course. As you mentioned, it's about when things like this are in a disciplined manner, what I do realize is that emotionally, right, you also do grow together in terms of maturity lah. And then it's about growing together as a couple, right? Because a person who's single and a person who's in a relationship is like completely different strategies in terms of how you actually like I guess progress in your life lah. So, and this actually like brings on to the next like a topic that we're going to talk about, right? And that is about scarcity mindset in relationships. Like Ryan, maybe you can chip in, right? You mentioned that just now, right? Your relationship between you and your girlfriend, right, is that you tend to be the person who's a cheapskate. So I also hands up, hands up. I'm also like that. I'm in this group, right? Right. And your girlfriend, right, on the other hand, is the type who needs to remind you, hey, you need to eat. You don't eat, then you die. That type.
Man,
Right.
your
So
podcast partner is attacking you right now.
yeah, right. So I'm blessed, right, to not be in this situation, because currently my partner is a person who is very much in line with the way that our financial values are very, very close, right? But for Ryan, like, how do you like deal with those challenges in your relationship? Because I would assume that you are in a relationship where you are more of a person who's like planning for the money, right? Then your girlfriend is the one who it's not that she doesn't plan; she probably also plans well. It's just that maybe in terms of financial values, there might be some differences. So how do you like address it?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Azad mentioned just now, right, was to talk about like have all this kind of like disagreements and sit down calmly and talk about it logically, and like what Sher just now said, like put your ego aside, and like just frame things from like a positive and like a growth kind of mindset, and don't kind of like avoid these kind of conversations because of fear. And we do always sit down to have like this kind of discussions because like our views are very contrasting. But one thing I'm like super blessed, right, is because like we don't kind of like shy away from all this conversations, because number one, like I'm kind of like a very strongly opinionated person. So sometimes like for lack of a better word, I can be stubborn as hell. But like my girlfriend, she's a lawyer, right? And like when it comes to arguments, right, I hands down I confirm lose to her. It's not like it, but of course some we do like have like a discussion about things, is and it's not like I always like bend the knee or whatever, but like we do have like all this tough discussions, and like I'm really grateful that me and my girlfriend, we can have like all this kind of like discussions. So naturally, like we would sit down to have like to think about things, like what we like to do is to kind of like write it down on a piece of paper. So like right now, like what kind of goals am I looking at, and what kind of goals is she looking at, right? And then we will try to like work around it, and like say like some goals are kind of like not feasible, so then we will just talk about it, and if we both come to a conclusion that it's not feasible, then we'll just drop the goal, or and kind of like focus on like other goals that are like much more achievable. But like for smaller things that are, or like more short term things, like say maybe like I'm having my shirt's like ripping off already, and I don't want to buy, and my girlfriend asks me to buy. So like sometimes I also have like some anger management issues, so that's kind of like on me. And what I think, like personally, what I'll do is kind of like I'll have like deep pause. So like I'll kind of like just drop all communications for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and like try to calm down. And then like when I calm down enough and I think through, and it kind of helps to like make better decisions. So like sometimes when I really need to change the tire of the car, or like when I actually don't need to change it, so it's kind of like, yeah, that kind of thing. So um I find that like pausing generally does help like a lot when it comes to like just um making decisions like this. But coming back again, right, I think I strayed off the topic like very far, but scarcity in like these mindset scarcity mindsets in relationships, right? Like for me, like it's kind of like a diehard habit. So sometimes my need to kind of like save money, right? Sometimes it goes beyond um addicted, I feel sometimes. So it's something that I over the years with like my girlfriend, right, I've come to acknowledge that this is actually a problem that I need to solve and learn to actually like spend adequately when needed. So yeah, I think it's kind of like coming from like a growth mindset, right? This is me growing emotionally and psychologically. So like what Shireen said, right? I'm taking this as like kind of like a learning opportunity because like I don't take care of myself very well. And I think like over the course of like the relationship, my relationship with my girlfriend, so I kind of like learned that I don't take care of myself as well. And from her, I'm learning to do it better that way. And she, on the other hand, is like learning all the good financial habits from me. So like together as a couple, we grow better. I'm growing better emotionally and she's growing better financially. So together, in the end of the day, you help out each other with your strengths, and you receive help from your partner on your weaknesses. And that's kind of like how I see it, like scarcity mindsets and abundance together in a relationship.
Yeah, man. Like, you belong to the I guess like being able to address the differences is something which I realize that is pretty important. Depending on the relationship that you come from, because it's not uncommon for me to see usually in a relationship. Where it's structured like one person is a saver, then the other person is like a person who spends, right? So, like, I guess like we can like ask Azan, right? Like, personally for you, right, when it comes to like scarcity in relationships, do you and Sure actually struggle with this? Like in terms, because usually when I talk about scarcity, right, there's usually two things, two main variables. Number one is time, and the other one is money, right? And that is like you know, usually the person who likes to spend, right, is usually because they're very afraid that time is very scarce. They are very worried that there will come a time, right, where they are unable to enjoy life anymore. Maybe because they have kids, or maybe because of age. And the other side of side of the coin is that a person who tends to want to save money, right, is because they actually value the future more than the current existence, as in the present lah. So from your experience, right, Azan, because I do know that you do have clients that you talk to, right? Like how like when you look at this like difference, right? Do you think that it is something which can be addressed, and what are some of the effective ways to address them?
So, instead of looking at scarcity and abundance as like two extremes, it's important, or like just two basically points. It's important to look them on a spectrum. Basically, if you look at it from the lens of just financial, you can say, fitness, both are equally important. Scarcity as well and abundance as well. The abundance mindset can help you grow financially, whereas the scarcity mindset can help you protect your financial future. And it's just our opinion. I think the best place to be is in the middle. It's a balance. Like, I'll give you an example with me and Shereen. So we're big lovers of food. So when we head out, there is no limit to how much we will spend. And that's living in the moment. That's the abundance mindset. But we don't head out every single day. And that's a protection mindset, because we know that money can be used to invest and protect our financial future. So if you balance it, it's a win-win. You can live in the moment, but also protect your financial future. It's very, I mean, it's just us. We don't look at these things in a negative light, like scarcity. We think it has its role to play, when it comes to improving your financial future or improving your financial health. It's just like you can also look at it from the lens of present oriented or future oriented. In the end, a balance is key. That's my take on it.
It's a very good take. As we can show through evidence, both of you always tend to manage to frame it in a very positive light, which is something which I learned a lot in this very short conversation, right? So, like for you, Sure, do you have any opinions on this, and would you like to add anything?
Okay, like for like what Azan said, we are actually right in the middle. We can say we value the importance of both abundance and scarcity. So we try to be in the middle. We try to strike a good balance. And I think how I was for me it was very easy to do this actually. And I credit it a lot to my parents. So growing up, my dad, he was the sole breadwinner. We were, you can say, we came from an average income family. My dad worked really hard, and there was something that was very interesting in the way he taught us about spending money. So my dad is actually a big he's very 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 careful about money. He's very especially on himself, spending money. He's very thrifty, but at the same time, whenever he sees that there's something that my sister and I enjoy, is that anything that would make us happy, like for example a family vacation, or we need to buy a new piece of clothing, he never even hesitate to actually let us spend money on that. And the point that he was trying to send us was that money is a tool. So yes, you work hard, you earn money, you want to protect your financial future, that's why you're careful about your spending. But at the same time, if you have it, remember that it's a tool. You should also spend it to for things that bring you joy, for to help you live in the moment. So I think coming from that upbringing, where my parents always remember, you always have to be both present oriented and future oriented, I think really helped me to bring the same mindset going into adulthood and managing my own finances, and eventually also managing money in with a Zan. So I think for us, striking a balance between scarcity and abundance really work out very well for us.
Yeah, I completely agree. I guess you know, I like what both of you have mentioned, right? And that is not to look at things in a very binary manner, but in a way that you manage to balance both scarcity and abundance mindsets, right? Because both of them do have a place in your own way of financial planning, right? It's key to have both of them to actually strike a balance to enjoy the moment as well as to make sure that you protect your future. And I think that's something which a lot of our listeners can actually take away from, because I do realize that the way that we frame this question is pretty much like quite negative, but I like how both of you have actually managed to turn it into something that's very positive, and that's something that is does have utility inside your personal financial planning toolbox, right? And that's something which I do take away from myself today. So thanks to both of you for doing that. And I guess like the next thing, right, that we do like to talk about is differing speeds of progression in relationships. And what we meant by that is that, sometimes in a relationship, right, there might be, one party, right, who might move faster in terms of what than, yourself. Like, for yourself, sure, just now you mentioned that, your finances in some of your previous relationship is that you manage to move faster, but sometimes the party is not moving as fast, right? And
Yes.
sometimes it might be in a case, right, where one party is not just not moving but actually suffering, in their career, finances, and sometimes external relationships. Sometimes the fault might not be on the party, so it might be due to parents, might be due to relationship which is not within his control. Like, how do you best address it? Do you think? Sure.
Okay, so first, the great thing about relationship is that you don't have to do difficult things alone. So helping your partner, getting them to a better place is the whole point of a relationship. You would like, if you see your partner, not being happy or suffering, you would like to get them out of that situation. You would like to help them. But then one person might ask, so I do that, but at the same time, after doing that for a long period of time, I'm thinking that is it becoming unhealthy? And I get that a lot from friends, and also sometimes with the people that we work with. And I think it's really important to actually monitor if your partner is actually putting the effort, trying, and actually have that intention of growth. Because if they do, you're measuring their, you can say, appreciation of your help. You measure their progress based on their effort, based on the little progress that they make every day. For example, from not caring about something to actually trying it, okay, from making 0.1% improvement to 0.5, rather than judging them on like an outcome basis criteria. So if you look at your partner and they are putting the effort to improve the situation, then you would feel like, okay, helping them, it's a good thing and I should continue doing that. However, if you continue to help your partner, of course, with all the great intentions, but you see that all they do is complain, going around the same topic again and again, but not doing anything to change it, even though you have provided them with some suggestion, try to give them some tips to actually take on to get out of that situation, and they make no effort at all to do those things, or no care for growth, then you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice whether you accept things the way they are, and that actually means you are genuinely fine with that, not secretly, resenting your partner, or you have to give your partner an ultimatum, and by telling them what are your expectations, because in the end, everybody has their own breaking point. So help is definitely a great plus in a relationship, but then only if you feel like that help is being appreciated. It's only if it's being made good use of. Otherwise, it's very easy for someone to reach a breaking point. So I think that's really important to point out.
Yeah, I think like the point that you mentioned about like so long as the party right is at least reciprocating the help, I think that is something which is very important in relationships, right? Especially like if like before you like decide on a very big decision like getting married to a person, right? Like I think it's very important that you actually like go through such challenges, at least to know to yourself, right, that you can depend on each other in terms of like crunch time lah, because as much as relationships are always about lovey-dovey, I mean, like many things in life, relationships, there is active work that both parties need to put in, and not just in the relationship but also on your own personal self. And I think one of the best articles that both have written, right, actually did mention is that both of you did mention actively, right, that you always put your individual needs first, and that is something which both of you do and don't compromise. And I think that is something, right, which is very brave to say, because I don't think many couples actually realize that that is one thing that you should strive to, because if you don't compromise on your own self, right, then what it will end up happening, right, is that both parties will not resent each other. And that's something which I feel is actually quite important in relationships, because we don't really, unfortunately, right, not many relationships are like that, and that's both of you are very good examples of like how you manage to like address challenges, right, in a very positive manner, right? So for yourself, right, Azan, right, not just in your current relationship, maybe your previous or your clients, right, differing speeds of progression in relationships, right, how do you feel is like one of the ways that you can address it?
So, well, Shireen gave a really good summary that, you start with helping them, then you monitor their progress and see if they're actually putting in the effort. But if they're not putting the effort and they're just complaining, then you have to make a choice. Now, this is a summary and can be said in three, four lines, but actually this process takes sometimes 6 months, or it can take even a year or more than that. So you need to give your partner time. It takes time, and you need to make sure I used to have this quote on my phone screen. It's like they need to progress at their own speed, not at your speed. You need to give them time. You need to judge them based on their capabilities and how fast they can grow, how quickly they can learn, not based on how quickly you can learn or how you can grow. So you need to have a change in perspective. Okay, I took 1 month to learn this. Maybe my partner cannot do that. Maybe my partner will take 1 year. So that is how you manage your expectations with your partner. Of course, after some time, that could be years, 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. Now, that's a very long time to make a decision whether your partner has been improving, growing, and making an effort. If after that, if they are, then it's great. You just continue growing. If they're not, then, like Shireen said, you have to give them an ultimatum, or you have to give yourself an ultimatum, actually, where either you accept things out or you tell your expectations to your partner. But there's a problem in this. The problem is that if you accept the way things are, that means you're dying to yourself. So either you die to yourself or either you die to your partner. So it's really important that what comes out of this help, or what comes out of after 3 years of helping your partner, is progress and growth, and not and no you could say stagnancy. Nothing like that. Because if there's stagnancy, then that means there's going to be a compromise. And when you make a compromise, you're either dying to yourself or you're either dying to your partner. And that's not a good way to live your life. I hope I didn't become too serious. I'm sorry
No,
about that.
no, absolutely not. But I think like you mentioned like a really good point, which is about compromising, specifically on your own principles. If I'm not interpreting this wrongly, because like let's say you have like some baseline principles in life. You absolutely don't like to do this thing, and then or you have a rule that you absolutely will not break, and then your partner breaks it for you. That's kind of like in the in and if you in the end you force yourself to kind of like compromise. Like I really like how you put it. You're dying to yourself. It's like you're
Yeah.
lying to yourself, and then it's like you're dying yourself inside. So it's like, and in the end, that doesn't help the relationship whatsoever.
Yeah. Actually, I want to like add a little bit more because a principle can be right or wrong. You can have a wrong principle. What I mean is if what you believe in is universally right, okay, is right for most people. Let's say it's good to save money. Now, it's very difficult to refute this thing. It's good to save money. So if your partner doesn't do it for like a long period of time, and then you compromise and say, yeah, okay, I'm fine with my partner being like that. First, you're dying to yourself, to a right principle or to a right belief you had. And the second way, what's the purpose of your relationship? What is a partnership in the first place? Why do you go into a relationship with someone? There is a reason why it's called a partnership. What? Just to make babies? You don't need a partner for that nowadays. Make babies. Like there's many ways to make babies these days. So what's the purpose of the partnership? I asked this question to not only my clients but also other people in my family, relatives. That what's the purpose of your partnership? Don't you think that hey, it's like it's just not about being like making babies and say growing old together? There's something more to that. There needs to be proper growth. You need to be able to measure it in some form or way. And if you're not growing together, that means there's compromise. And me and Sher, we hate the word compromise.
He even wrote an article about it.
Yeah. But our for some people, our views might be too harsh and extreme. But in the end, this is what has worked for us. We're not saying that this is the right way to live a life or to think. How you live, and you can do whatever you want. But this is just what has until now.
I really like how you guys like me and Aaron, right? We approach like investing problems from the why. We start from the why and then we go in. But like my for me myself, right? I'm not I don't think too much. I don't have like much thought regarding like relationships sometimes, because and the point that you brought up, like start with why in a relationship, that's incredibly powerful, because like I think a lot of couples nowadays, like when you ask them why are you together with this person, they can't really answer it, and I think that's like incredibly important, because in the end of the day, like after every argument or disagreement, you come back to like the starting point, which is like, why am I together with this person in the first place? And that's why, like, it serves you, and for like a good reason, it serves you as a like a good reminder as to like why you're still together with this person in that
Can
sense.
I can I add a little bit more?
Yeah,
This
go for it.
it's a experience between me and Shireen actually mine. I like this might shock the listeners in a way, but I married Shireen on the basis of logic. When I married Shireen, it's not like, oh, I loved her. I love her like so much today, like to bits. But when I married Shireen, it was logic, because everything apart from love, everything else made sense. All the whys were there. What do I need in a partner? Every single thing. Because truth be told, I've had countless flings in my life, and I've loved some of the girls, but I never respected them. I respected Shreen because of her ability to change, her ability to learn, her ability to make things happen. She was different. So I was like, hey, she fitted all my lenses. I would put a lens on and she was a perfect fit. I would put another lens on, she was a perfect fit. She was like, hey, the yin to my yang. And I married based on that. And I told her, I was like, hey, I like you and I love you in a certain way, but I will love you more once I get married to you. I said to her that. And like today, my love for her has increased by 10, 100 fold since the day I got married to her. But the decision to get married was based on logic because I love many other girls in the future. That doesn't mean I would just get married to them because there's so many other things that are needed before you say, yes, this is the girl I want to marry, or this is the boy I want to marry. You need to think it through, this way. You need to make sure you are making a calculated decision because it's a calculated life. Everything good in life comes from calculated decision. It's the way it is,
Yeah, I
I
love
could
it.
almost I could almost mistake that
Please don't
same.
cancel me, please.
No. I think it's something which not many people dare to say. Because whenever you say stuff like that, right, people, oh, you're transactional. But actually, if you think about it, right, I could almost mistake the words for Tesla investing. Like, why not? I could actually
Why
just
not,
replace
right?
that with, oh, it's an investment idea. But I guess that's why it's called a really adulting show, right? Because these are very hard questions. I think not many people actually really sit down and ask that question. I think two fundamental questions you guys actually asked, right, which I felt was a very important question is number one, why are you still in this relationship? And I think
Yeah.
that is a very good question that you need to always ask yourself that because there is always a conscious choice, right? You can actually choose, especially if it's not relative yet, if you're not married, right? Whether or not you will wish to walk away. And I don't think many people ask that question enough, because it sounds very transactional, it sounds very bad. But I think what you mentioned about, what all of you have mentioned, which is very right, is that in relationships, right, there is more than just the lovey-dovey stuff, because eventually when you strip that all away, right, there are many, many things and many facets in a relationship that needs to go in and need to work, right, in order for it to be a very fruitful one. Because eventually it is a very big decision, because if you intend to get married to the person, right, and let's not, of course, like, there's always an option to divorce, but the cost of the divorce is very expensive, and not just in terms of money, but
Yeah.
emotionally, it is very expensive, to get all these things done in terms of your time, so that decision to get married, it is like, you do really need to really sit down and really have a lot of conscious effort sometimes to test the relationship, as what Azan mentioned, right? Put in a lot of lenses to see whether or not you can see yourself being married with this person, and God knows if you're going to have kids with this person, right? That's something which you even need to address even more, right? Because you're talking about a life partner. Then like I cannot imagine, right? If you don't put in enough conscious effort, right? Once you hit like 60, 70, 80, right? I say that that's going to be quite a challenge, So like
I think 30, 40, it's going to be a challenge.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not a light thing to do, lah. And also like just now, Azan, you actually asked a very important question, which I feel like many couples should ask. And if you've been together for some time, why are you not married yet? It's a very
I asked you,
uncomfortable
right?
question. Yeah, it's actually a very good question that you should ask yourself. Why? Because like if you've been together for quite a number of years, right? You sometimes you do need to ask that question because you need to figure out why is it that you're not married yet? And because like if you ask that question, right, usually if it's something which is very uncomfortable, and you also gives yourself some time, right, to really assess the relationship in a very factual manner. Like, why am I still not married? I've been together with this person for some time. And then you do ask the question, is it a legitimate reason, right? If it's
Can
not
I?
a legit, yep, you can.
Can I add something to this? Again, this is coming from my insurance relationship actually,
Yep.
as well. That when you ask yourself this question, why are you not married? Now, look, when it's right, you go get married. And if you're giving yourself too many reasons, this is the reason why I'm not getting married, this is the reason why I'm not getting married, right? They're actually not just right signs. If you have negative reasons for why you're not getting married, these are just not right signs. So you have to ask yourself, hey, then why am I spending so much time with this individual? Okay, maybe I'm trying to turn the negative into positive, but then again, that point, are you seeing the negative changing into the positive? Because otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Like I met Shireen in 2017, and there was a progression in me and progression in Shireen. We both were changing our negatives into positive, right? And whatever I thought was negative in her, whatever she thought was negative in me, right? We were changing it. And the day when we felt like, hey, there's nothing, what I call, there not to get married, there's no reason left. Okay, marriage. So don't just say, oh, because it's too early, I want to get married at 30, or I'm gonna get married at 35, because you're actually doing it wrong. Marriage is actually a wealth amplifier, or like marriage is a compounder for emotional health, in a good way, psychological health in a good way, financial health in a good way. So if you have wrong reasons, address them, or maybe find a new path, because you have one life and you need to make sure that you don't waste the time, and you have to experience what you desire with people, alone, the way you want it before you die. So don't delay marriage because you're compromising today on something. If you're compromising today on something, make sure to work on it. If it can't be worked on, then it's better to move on.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable question that if you really like sit down and ask yourself, I realize that there's a lot of things which you can find out in a relationship, and unfortunately, not many people ask that enough. From experience, lah. I do ask myself that, but for reasons I can't go into, there are
Yeah, I
legitimate
get it.
reasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
so for myself,
Yeah,
yeah,
I get it. Yeah.
but I get it, and I really appreciate that you asked that question because it really does force a person to really like assess the relationship, right? Whether or not, why. And as you mentioned, you and Sher have mentioned, right? You do need to give some issues in a relationship, right? You do need to give it time. So it might
Yeah.
not, yeah, the answer might not be as immediate. That's why there are legitimate reasons. Therefore, we need to give it some time. So I really appreciate like that point. Is I think that's something which I think some of our listeners do have to ask sometimes because I don't think we ask that enough.
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, right, was like really good advice, because like I really like how you've mentioned, like, when you have this thought about getting married, right, you shouldn't have this shred of like hesitation. There's no like buts or ifs, and you just go for it. It's go time, because like this person is the right person for you. And yeah, I think that is like a really it's a vague way of putting things, but it's like, how do I put it? It's like it's just right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and after like marrying someone, the next big thing the mother-in-law or the father-in-law will ask is, when am I gonna have a grandchild? And that's where like I think most couples will go into like the next stage of like values in terms of like raising kids. So I haven't reached that stage of like marriage yet, right? But like I think you guys and like Aaron, definitely can I ask you guys like when is like kind of like too much or too little of all this like questions about like raising kids, like it becomes like a problem, or like not in kind of like a bad way.
Maybe sure you can chime in.
If I'm not mistaken, Ryan, you're probably talking about too much or too little when it comes to giving them money. Is that right?
Yes, giving them money.
Or allowing them to spend money. I think for me, the first question that actually pops into my mind is why does too much or too little even have to be a thing, or why is it even an issue that we need to be concerned about? Because why not just make giving them money or rewards a thing for something that they actually work for instead of just for nothing. So, like for example, for a young kid, it's very difficult to actually teach the value of money to them, to tell them, like, okay, here is when it's the right time to spend, or here is when it's the right time to save. I think it's very hard to teach a young kid those values. So until they turn probably teenage years, like maybe 17, 18, I'm not sure, depending on the maturity of the kid as well, I think a good way to actually approach this would be to play like a game of give and take with them. Like you can probably show them that when you do good behaviors, good actions, when you work for it, then you will be rewarded. Earlier days, probably you could reward them with like candies and stuff instead of like money. And then when they are more aware of money and the utility of it, you can give them in return for the right actions. Because and then take the rewards away as well if they do any wrong actions or actions that like you do not condone. So because in the end, life works the same way as well, isn't it? Because when you do good things, you get rewarded for them. When you do the wrong things, the good things get taken away, or like you get punished. So I think in a way it's very helpful to help a young child learn about money, and also pretty much everything in life, that it's all about doing the right things and getting the rewards of it, and vice versa.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned that, like you need to focus on like doing the right things, or discipline, or like what's good and what's bad, like how to draw the line, instead of like focusing on like money itself, like what is too much or what is too little. Because like sometimes when I also like personally I feel, if like we value like money too much, right, we become like overly money minded, it becomes a burden sometimes, like you might like have that scarcity mindset or like abundance that we mentioned just now. The best thing to do, I feel like generally, is to kind of like teach children how to do the right thing at the right time, and then like have that like nice balance, and teach them like money is kind of like just a means of like getting things, like what you
Yeah.
mentioned of your childhood with your father just now, sure. So yeah, what do you think about this, Azan?
Yeah, I completely agree with Shah, because in the end, the too much or too little doesn't even need to be a thing. It's just they say you do the right actions, you get rewards. You do the wrong actions, your rewards get taken away. That's how life works. That's how money works. You invest in the right companies, you get money back. You invest in the wrong companies, the money gets taken away from you. The same way, you invest in the right people, you get good, what you call, returns. You invest in the wrong people, you get bad returns. So this thing applies to everything in life in a way. And but there's something that Ryan said before he asked this question that is still in my mind, and it was regarding values. And sorry, I'm going back a little. And the reason I want to say it, because it's really crucial for the young generation not to make this mistake. You said that once someone gets married, then there's another values. Oh, the values of the grandparents in a way, like, oh, you need to have a kid. Look, you don't get married to grandparents or grandmother or like your dad or your mother. You get married to your partner, right? If you don't want to hate your parents and if you don't want to hate your grandparents, don't listen to them, because a lot of times what they want is not what you want. A lot of times what the culture wants or the society wants is not what you want. So if you don't want to hate them, or if you don't want to resent them later in life, don't listen to them. Don't have a kid because your family wants to have a kid. This is plain, sorry about to say this stupidity. Don't just do that. Doesn't make any sense on any level. Doesn't make any sense at all. You have to follow your value. If you don't want to have a kid, doesn't matter if everybody else in this world has kids. Don't have kids. It's your choice. You don't have to listen or follow the value of someone. It's like something which you're not ready of, and you're doing it before you're ready. It will just not feel good. It might affect your goals. Or some people just don't want to have kids. So I just wanted to add that, because a lot of things that people do is because of pressure, whether societal or familial pressure. And the key is to break it, because I myself come from a South Asian family. Okay, I was supposed to get married at the age of 18. Okay, to like one of my cousins. Then I was supposed to get married at 23 and 25, and then I was supposed to have babies by this age. And it was a tough journey, because I had to fight not only like it's a psychological battle and emotional battle with my let's say my mother, but also with the society, with the relatives. But in the end, if you do what you want to do, you'll be happy. They might not be happy, okay, or they might not be pleased. But in the end, your happiness comes first. Otherwise, if you're not happy, again, you're dead.
I
I
would
think I'm
say
getting
that
cancelled, right?
no. I don't think you're getting cancelled. I think it's a very good things that people should listen to more, because like end of the day, right? People can say that they want grandkids, they want this, they want that, they want etc etc. But the one that has to live with the decisions, right, is you
Correct.
eventually,
Yeah,
right? End of the day, no matter how much like your in-laws or even your parents want to have kids, they are not going to be around forever, right? Like end of the day, that decision to and the person that has to live with that decision is end of the day is yourself, right? And you cannot outsource decisions like that to someone else, because this
yeah,
is a very like important decision that you have to make and stand firmly on, right? Whether or not is it the person that you're going to marry, whether or not you want to have kids or how many kids, or
yeah,
whether or not you want to have like expectations or whatever, right? I mean these are hard decisions that you have to make,
yeah,
even if it goes against people, because you will realize very quickly, a lot of people can say whatever they want, but the ones that have to live with the decision is you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to come
That
up with
doesn't mean
like,
not to have kids. Having kids is not bad. It's just that just have kids when you want to. Not when your auntie wants to, right?
yeah, or yeah, I completely agree. Like,
It's like auntie is having a kid with you. It's like that. It doesn't make sense.
yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Especially like, we are pretty much like predominant in Southeast Asia, lah. So it's like very common, during the New Year when you're gonna have kids soon. And do you have a boyfriend, girlfriend? These are things which, yeah, like it's a common thing, lah. I would say.
You
I
know
would
what
say
they
that.
call me? Adam, they call me the outsider in my family. when I went to a wedding recently, like last year. Yeah, last year. Okay, and every wedding occasion or function, because in like South Asian weddings, there's a lot of ceremonies and functions. I was called the outsider. Oh, you're trying to be an outsider, or are you an outsider? Just because I just have a different way of living, but you have to live with it.
But this is kind of like why we have you guys on the show, because like I think like you guys are very like non-contrarian kind of like couple with like very progressive and open-minded mindsets, and you guys dare to be different. That's why it enables you guys as a couple or like individually as well to achieve like excellence and greatness in life.
Yeah, and most of
Thank
all,
you
I
for
think
saying that.
is yeah, and I think also that ability, right, to talk about topics which are uncomfortable. Because
Yeah.
like the issue, right, is that like in Southeast Asia, right, it's very common for you to make sacrifices for your family. And that's not something which like will lead to like happiness lah, because like the children is like one of the topics, right? Then there's also a topic about careers and things like that. Sometimes parents want this, want that, but then eventually you realize that end of the day, the one that has to make the decision is yourself lah. So um in Southeast Asia it's very common, right? And I guess like it does move on to our last point of today, and that is when all else fails, right? How do you actually move on from your relationship? Because I think like this is really like something which I think if you live long enough, sometimes you do have relationships, not just with your partners, but sometimes your friends as well, right? Where the relationship is just not working no matter how much effort you put in, and that's when it's time to say it's time to move on. And like and usually what I realize is that people will, especially if they're in love, right? Especially they really like the friend a lot, is that people do like will like surmount Mount Everest, right? To keep a lot of reasons, right, why they should stay in the relationship, especially if it's someone that they really care about. But I guess like the question, maybe we can start with maybe Ryan, maybe I can ask you, is that we've discussed a lot today, right, about some of these things, right, that make the relationship work, right? And what do you think are some of the biggest red flags, right, where it's time to move on?
I mean, like speaking from like people around me, right? When I see kind of like people that don't stay together, it's mainly because they it's not because like of some superficial reasons, like they argue a lot or whatnot, because like sometimes confrontational things like this, it does lead to like some fruitful conclusions. But like most of the time it's mostly when their lives or their values cannot align, no matter what. Some people, they value say like long distance, right? When like me and my girlfriend, we do long distance, but like we don't intend to do it like forever. We have a goal to end the long distance in like say X amount of years, and then we come back together. So there's always like a goal to work towards um together, and that's kind of like what I think keeps couples together. But like when the goals don't align anymore, they have like separate goals, it's kind of like natural to stray into like different paths, and it's inevitable in a sense that in the end, like they go on their separate ways. So like what we mentioned for the last hour, right, which is basically like all the values and the principles that we have. um like some things that you have like rules you don't break for yourself. You have like principles, you have like values, and like your counterpart has to also respect that and respect you as a person. And in a like similar manner, right, you also have to respect and treat each other like with care and like respect for each other's like goals and dreams, and you help each other out. But when that doesn't happen, like normally I would say like people don't stay together, and that's kind of like when you should like move on. I know it's kind of like a hard thing to admit, but in the end of the day, right, you have to be like brutally honest with yourself, critically honest, and say like what kind of things that I cannot tolerate and what I can tolerate. And then or rather, you know, be like Sher and Azan, have like zero compromises, zero tolerance to like things that they cannot stand, which is like I think the most healthy thing ever. Yeah, you know, you need to understand yourself first, and then you have like things that, you know, you don't want to endure. And when you think that you cannot change the person, because most of the time you cannot, you know, personalities do stick with people like that. And then inevitably, you know, it's time to say goodbye, and then, you know, there's really like no choice, because out of like respect for yourself, you know, you don't want to stay in the relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest thing to do when you are in a relationship that's not working is that having that courage to take that stand and to move on, not just for yourself but also for the other party, right? Because sometimes, right, moving on is actually not just a benefit but for yourself, but it's also for a benefit for the other party sometimes, right? Because relation like decisions are to like break up, right? It's not a relation decision like getting married is a simple one. Sometimes it is difficult because emotionally there is also a cost in terms of like moving on, right? Not on yourself but also on the other party. So for you, for your instance, sure, from your experience, it might not relate just to relationships on a romantic level, but relationships with friends and family and things like that, right? Like what are the, like what are the some ways, right, which you tell yourself, right, to actually allow you to transit, to move on? Like what are some of the ways which you find that helps you to make a better decision to move on?
Okay, first, I think I would like to just clarify one thing. Um, I think when like we mentioned about compromise earlier, like we say we don't have compromises in our relationship, but they are on big things that would actually have a significant impact on our personal life, our financial life. Whereas when it comes to like little things, like for example, like where should we go for dinner or what movie should we watch, compromises are fine in those matters. Like just wanted to make that clear because some might listen and like, might think that zero means ultimately zero, but that's only on bigger stuff. But coming back to the question, I think I'll just start off with a good example of my life, and I think probably that would set the story, set my explanation later on. I'm guilty of staying in romantic relationship and friendships in the past longer than I should have. So what I mean by this is that there are problems that need to be addressed. I've addressed them. I've given time, but in those situations, time doesn't do anything. Time doesn't change the situation in any way. So hanging on in those relationships, hanging on in those friendship actually just wasted time on both parties. I do not flourish in that relationship, so does the other person. So it's just not fair for myself to waste my time in that manner, and it's not fair to waste that person's time as well. They are better off, being with someone else or being with another friend that they can actually relate to, they can actually move forward together rather than me. And I, the same way for me. So I think if you have given time and time doesn't do anything, of course that is sufficient amount of time, then you really got to ask yourself, is it really worth giving third, fourth, fifth chances? What will giving more chances or giving more time do? And you owe it to yourself actually that you have to go and experience the things that you desire. You owe it to yourself to be happy. So you only have one life. If you're not going to do that, so who else? So it is a very difficult question to confront first, and also to take the actions to move forward, but it is very necessary.
Thanks for sharing that, sure. I think I think a lot of us can relate to like staying in a relationship when it's long past its due lah. Like seriously, I think I am also guilty of that. Sometimes, when I know that, it's time to move on, but you stay on because I guess like the factor I would say that is you're still comfortable in some respect and you don't want to address the uncomfortable because
Or I
moving
think
on is not,
sometimes, sorry to cut you off. I think
yeah.
there's also the factor where someone is still clinging on hope that maybe something will change. Uh,
So you're leaving it to luck,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you're still praying, you're still hoping, but how long can you do that?
Yeah, lah, I agree. Like I guess like the way to address it, right, is that you do need to like, as much as possible, do what you can, and if it doesn't, right, then if you're already relying on lady luck to help you, right, then I guess that should be a sign that, it's time
Yeah.
for you to like move lah. How about you, Azan? Like have you ever been in a situation where you stayed on for way too long?
Never.
My man, my man.
Azan is not a man who likes to waste time, guys.
No, it's like this was a joke. Actually, my when I the first time when I came to Malaysia at the age of 20, I was in a relationship which I should have left probably a year earlier, but I was just a 20-year-old baby. It's basically baby stuff. You don't know much at 20-year-old, you know. But then the day like it was ending, I was so happy. I was so happy because I knew that hey, there is no chance I would have ever stayed with this individual and be with this individual. And I don't want to add too much to this. I just want to say this one single line that the decision to stay with someone or with your partner should be out of inspiration, not out of fear or desperation. Most people stay in relationships of desperation because, oh, maybe I won't be able to find another one. What do you mean? There's billions of people in this world. Maybe I won't be able to find another love or another one to love. You're a human being. You're a social being. You're made to love. You love anyone. Just get stranded with someone on an island for like 30 days and you start loving that person. That's how we are wired. That's how we are made, you know? So don't stay with a partner because some sort of fear or desperation. You need to stay because of inspiration. You're inspired to stay with this person, you know? And that's how it should be. If you're in a relationship because of comfort or fear or desperation, something is wrong, you know? You're compromising and, you're just wasting your life in a way.
And that note, guys, is the end of our topic. Definitely, like I guess like that's a very good way to end the topic that we have at hand, right? And that is to basically make decisions with people around you. Your time is very precious, and their time is very precious. And sometimes it's better to really take a step back, right, and assess the relationships. And I would say I really like what Azan mentioned, and that is to stay in out of inspiration. Because what I really do realize is that most people flourish, right, when they are with people who inspire each other, because that actually allows for a lot of positive growth, right? And that actually is pretty much the last question that we have in our topic. But of course, we will move on to the Q&A, which is we have quite a number of good questions that we have today. And the first question, right, is like, how do you guys? I guess this is a list of like how to questions, and I think these are pretty good questions that they have asked. And that is, how do you guys make big purchase decisions together? And what do you do if you do not agree? I guess we can address this to both Azan and Sher. And maybe Ryan, you can chime in as well.
Ryan, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So like I think in terms of like big purchases, they are like one of the tougher decisions to make. It's kind of like to me on a level where whether I want to have a kid or not. It's kind of like a thing that you need to have like a decision aligned and you go at it together whether you want to commit or not. Because like let's say if it's like a house, right? You're going to have to take a loan and then you're gonna have to pay it off in like 20, 30 years together. So it's a very long-term decision that you have to make, and from the bottom of your heart you must have like zero hesitations if you want to buy a house, and you have to have like you have to agree together without hesitations, if that makes sense. But like let's say what if like one person doesn't agree, then I think out of respect, like it's okay to just rent, because like there's really nothing wrong in like doing that. But like other bigger purchases, like say a car, or other things, like in the end of the day, right, you have to sit down and think through like whether you need it's worth to spend that amount of time and money together on that purchase. So a lot of considerations and a lot of like discussions need to go through before you make that decision. At least that's what I think.
So when it comes to big purchase decisions, if we both don't agree first, we don't move forward. Unless we both agree, then we can move forward. Otherwise, we just don't move forward. And in the end, it has to make long-term financial sense. Long-term mean 5 to 10 years, in the future. If it doesn't make long-term financial sense when it comes to big purchases, we don't do it. How do I give an example to you? Let's say, is it worth it to buy a house today? Let's say to live in for us. Can we buy it? Yes. Is it a good decision to do so? No, because we can possibly invest all of the money in high performing assets, and by delaying our gratification for a few years, let's say, we could make way more money, or we could generate way more money in the end. And that means our quality of life will be even better after some time or in the long run. So, and if we have to make a decision today, and if we have to make a purchase decision right now, then unless we agree, then we move forward. If we don't agree, then we don't. And what do you do if you do not agree? Sorry, I'm reading the question. If you don't agree, we don't move forward. For us, it's 100%, regardless of who brought more money in the relationship or who brought less money. Doesn't matter. We both have to agree. It has to make sense. It has to be logical. It has to make the most sense, whichever option we take. If I say no and it makes more sense, then it has to be no. Now, you might be thinking it's compromising, but you're not really compromising what you call on something good. You are actually, you came, to this, to the idea that I want to purchase this. But if you're coming from a wrong place, it's not compromising. You're just changing your perspective that, oh, no, okay, it was a wrong idea that I was thinking to buy this expensive thing.
For me, I think just to add on to what Azan has said, he mentioned about whether something is a good decision in the long term. I think another way we make decisions when it comes to large purchases, maybe not on such large scale, but a smaller one, maybe high three figures to mid four figures, is we ask ourselves if those purchases will actually add value to our life. So, for example, I think Azan maybe he doesn't realize this as well. A few times when we either one of us have a little, I would say a little bit more expensive purchase in our mind, we would just automatically start voicing it out to the other person, like, hey, I've been thinking that of getting this, and I think that you would do this and this and this for our lives, and what do you think about it? So it would never ever come as a surprise, first and foremost. But we'd always approach it in the sense that, yes, of course, it has to make financial sense, but does it add value to our life? For example, I think a couple of years ago, so Azan knows that I really love playing the piano. So I've been playing the piano since I think I was 7. So because of moving houses and all that, and eventually my parents actually sold my this big wooden standing piano away because it was too difficult to move it around. So I've lost touch with piano for many, many years. So I could not remember the last time I was playing the piano, and I love playing the piano. And so I was saying it to Azam one day, like, it's been so long since I played the piano, and it was everything that I was doing when I was a young kid. And he's like, why not you like start playing the piano again? I told him, I haven't like thought of investing in a piano since a long time because it's an expensive thing to buy. And we talk about it, I think, for months and months, in a weighing, like, does it make sense financially? Does it add value to our life? And in the end, it's something that like I truly enjoy in my spare time, and it makes me happy. It's a great way to move away from work, and it's just a plus in our life. So we decided that it would be a good purchase, and that's basically how we came into agreement to it. It was an obvious what do you call valuable purchase first, and then we talk about it, and with matter of time it was easy to make that decision. Yeah, so just wanted to add that on top of what Azan has shared.
Yeah, I remember this these times. But yeah, overall, it's just that if your purchase or if your decision will lead to a lower quality of life in the long term, then maybe you should refrain from it. Yeah, that's our take on it.
Yeah, I like how I think end of the day, right, it's really about like coming to terms with the fact that you do have to talk about such expenses openly. And if you're in a relationship where you can trust each other to basically just voice out, hey, I want this, right? Then I like what Sure and Azan has shared. That is usually when the purchase is made, it should come of no surprise to all parties in the relationship, right? And I
Yeah.
think that is something that's very important in like being in a very healthy relationship, right? Because I think like the worst thing that you can do, right, is that suddenly your partner does something, then you didn't you were caught unaware, right? That's really like a red flag, because it's like I think in very like positive relationships, right? Usually such surprises are usually almost never happen. In fact, it never really happens. From my own personal relationship, I have never been in a situation where I'm caught unaware financially by my partner lah. Because we have always been very open about our finances, and we don't like to we don't really hide behind um you know how much we're worth a while. We just put it all on a spreadsheet for everyone to see, and that keeps things very open and clean. And what I've learned, by doing this, right, is that you become a lot more like that's when you can start making decisions out of facts rather than assumption. And I think that is something which not all couples actually do. They like to keep their finances separate. They don't talk about their finances. They don't talk about their investments, right? But what I've learned through practicing on a personal level, right, is that when you're very open with your partner and you're very like clear and very like factual about finances, right, it becomes a lot easier, right, mentally, emotionally, to make financial decisions together and to execute your financial goals together. And I think that level of clarity, right, is what I think couples should try to strive to do lah. Because if you are in a relationship, right, where you trust the person, right, then it should be of no issue for you to I guess like share your finances together lah. That's where I'm coming from, right? So
I have actually a question for both of you guys. Can I ask?
yeah, go ahead.
So there's something that me and Shah, we have realized, in our relationship, over the years, that there's something that I'm better when it comes to decisions, and there's something that Shah is better. So I'm more tactical. I'm really good at making short-term decisions, where Shah is extremely good at seeing the bigger picture, long-term decisions. Have you guys experienced that in your relationships?
Oh yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Personally, from my relationship, is that I'm a person who is very long term and macro. Yeah, I'm a person, right, who is very like I really look towards the long term, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ahead, right, and I plan like diligently, and I always methodically always check every quarter, right, how we're doing. But in terms of like the nitty gritty, right, like in terms of like really like sitting down, doing all the nitty gritty, making sure that our processes are being checked, right, that's where my partner excels in. She's very good at making sure that our day to day targets are being met. Whereas for in the big picture things, right, that's where I come in lah. So in terms of like strategically, making decisions, right, what I would usually do is that I'll sit down and then plan. Then I'll try to do it on a spreadsheet. Then obviously, because I always need to get an input from her, and then from there she'll see whether or not is it viable, is it possible, and then from there we just work together to achieve it lah. So that's what I do on a personal way of how we do our finances planning. Like we will have literally we have like a shared Google spreadsheet, right, on Google Docs, right, where we actually like share like it's like for each one to see lah. That's where we actually like detail down. I think that's very important in our communication, because it's like we cannot hide behind anything else lah. We don't like to like hide finances lah. I prefer the method where we're open, and then strategically, she's good at executing. I'm very good at macro. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
I can echo Aaron's experience. Basically, like but opposite. It's kind of like the opposite. I'm the person who kind of like thinks of ways to actually execute the thing, because like my plan for the macro is actually quite terrible, right? My goal, right, is to make as much as I can, and I actually don't have like something that I really want to spend on, like say a vacation. I don't really take day offs myself, so like I'm just like terrible, but I'm just like a money hoarder, lah. If you lack of a better word, I like to like accumulate the cash, accumulate my wealth, but like because the bigger numbers kind of like drives me and makes me happy. But I don't really like kind of like spend in that sense, but like sometimes when I do kind of like plan for these things, it's quite easy for me to misdirect my goal, and that's where like my girlfriend comes in, because like she has like very concrete and concrete goals for future. Like say she wants a vacation at like 2024, and that's what we are planning towards, and how we're gonna execute that, like the budgeting and stuff like that. I handle that, and like we also do like have our finances like open on a spreadsheet, and we also do share like a bank account that we kind of like contribute like 10% of our salaries into 10-20% of our salaries into for like stuff like groceries or things that we do together, and that's how we keep track of like our finances. But on that note, right, Azan and Cher, this is kind of like a surprise question that's not on the list, but like what do you think about like couples putting their finances together or like keeping them separate? Like which one do you think it works the best? What is more healthy in a sense?
So I'm just, we like to look at it, what's the best possible outcome? Okay. The best possible outcome in a marriage or in a partnership only comes when you are one, when everything is one. Like we were financially free even without getting married to each other, right? But our financial strength is 10 times more now compared to our finances are one. Now there's a condition for it though. We can do it as one because we are 100% into the relationship. We do not believe there's going to be a bad end to it. We know we're going to die together. We work for that. We plan for that. We put effort for that to make that thing a reality. So that's why it's easier for us to have all our finances together. And then of course there's benefits. You're financially stronger, you can do more things, you can do nothing. Like Shireen does yoga for like 3.5 hours a day. Can you imagine? like it has helped us to not what you call to become financially stronger, to get more control of our time. Whereas if we were separate, we would always be thinking, okay, yeah, we need to make more, build more. But like I said, there's a condition. Unless you're all in, not 50%, not 75%, emotionally, psychologically, unless you're all in, unless you want to, you believe in long-term marriage, you believe in long-term success of the marriage, you believe in keeping it long-term, then you should separate your finance. But if you want to actually take, they say, right, marriage is a wealth amplifier. If that only comes when your finances are one, not when your finances are separate. Because one person could be doing it. What if the other person gives up? Then what? What marriage is that? What partnership is that? So this is the best case scenario. And we like to preach the best case scenario. So because a lot of people will be like, yes, it's not possible. Not everybody is like that. I can't trust my partner. My partner's not good with it. When they say these things, it's actually there's something wrong with your partnership. There's nothing wrong with the idea that you can combine your finance. If you can't, then there's something wrong with your partnership in the end, or you have different, or you can't trust your partner totally, or there's something else. But a partnership means one. You're together. That's the essence of marriage. That's the essence of relationship, and the best benefits come out when you do things as one. And everything that is of when everything is treated as one. What about you, Shah?
I think I had this idea while Azan was talking, and I think that asking this question, whether are you comfortable combining finances with me to your partner, at the beginning of your relationship, I think it's a really good. It gives you a really good idea about not only where you can, how you can build a financial life together, but also whether this is actually a potentially good partner for you. Because in the end of the day, if you are 100%, then you'll be fine combining your finances. But if you're not, and most of the time the reasons would be, for example, I can't trust my partner, or my partner doesn't, want to take up the responsibility, or I don't see a long-term future with your partner, then you have way more important issues to address about your relationship before you address whether should I combine my bank accounts together. And I think that is why I said that, asking this question early on in the relationship rather than after being together for 3, 4, 5 years is important, because then you would know, okay, is it really, am I really doing the right thing? Am I setting myself up for a part of success or failure? Because if you can't trust your partner with your finances, I think indirectly and directly as well, it's a red flag. It's like an alarm going in your mind, because it tells you like, why am I not comfortable? And then you go into your reasons, and then you really have to face the truth, whether you can actually build a financial life together with your partner. So for me, I think that this is a really good way to you can say, filter your potential partners as well. Yeah, at least that's what I think.
There's a question that we get all of the time. So as when we tell them, oh, our money is one. So who brought more, you or Sher, in the relationship? Who had more money? And it's a very shallow question, because when you look, if you it doesn't matter when you these things don't matter who brought in more, who brought in less. When your mindset is in the long term success of the relationship, when your mindset is you want to end together, then what, like, doesn't matter who brought more. It doesn't, or the idea of, hey, you're adding in less to the relationship, or giving in less to the relationship, and I'm giving in more when it comes to money. It doesn't matter when you want to end. That's why, like Shireen said, your first feeling should be that, hey, I want to end everything with this person in my life, that my end will be with this person. Unless you can feel this way, you can't combine your finance. But if you can't feel this way, that means your relationship is not as. That's why be careful before you go into a relationship. Make sure you're going into the right relationship, so that you can feel that way, that, hey, I feel 100% with this partner. It's until the end. And then you can make these decisions of combining finances with your partner. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I guess like the easiest way that I've always noticed, right, is that in my current relationship, right, I don't really care about who brings more to the table,
Yeah.
because I trust that, eventually, right, we will end up well together. And that level of like trust, right, I think is very important to a fundamentally good relationship, because when you can 100%, 110% trust one another, then you really don't second guess much, because you're very comfortable to as how you and Sher have demonstrated very well in this episode, in basically addressing, right, difficulties and challenges in a relationship, and trust that each party will be able to turn that into something positive, and for the lack of a better word, right, opportunity, right? And I think that is something which we all can take away and learn from, and that in a very thriving relationship, right, when you are very open and you're able to trust one another, then what ends up happening is that it becomes a very positive growth machine, not just for you but for the other partner as well. And that's what I also personally try to strive in my relationship lah, right? And um I guess like sometimes, right, there are people, right, I would say, where they do come up to me, right, and then they do ask like, how do you solve issues on couples, right, not being able to talk about finances calmly and openly or collaboratively, right? Because I'm pretty sure like me and Azan, we do talk a lot about this, because we do have clients who do that. So maybe Azan would like to take this question, like, if a client comes up to you, right, and say that maybe he and his wife, as you had mentioned, right, you don't have any like disagreements, and then there's like a growing debt size in the family, right? Um, and this person is married, to the person. Sometimes they don't address it, right? Like, how do you solve this issue, or what are the best ways you think that you can solve this issue?
Of addressing this, right?
Yeah, addressing like
That-
because like they have an issue, right? And then the husband knows that this is an issue, but they have not talked about
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. All right. Well, like, comes back to what Sher said a while ago, that the person that like, let's say in this case, husband needs to make sure that they're addressing this particular issue in a safe environment. The wife should not feel like they're being judged, should not feel like they're being blamed. It should come from a non-judgmental way, and it should be about, okay, look, this is a problem, and don't say this is a problem because of you. Say this is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because it might use the word us rather than, what do you call, blame the individual. It might cause this to us in the future. It might lead to this in the future, and say, but if we make it fine, then we can have a better life. So basically, don't point to the other individual, don't blame the other individual. Come from a non-judgmental perspective and talk about it, because you have to talk about it. Maybe it will take one discussion. Maybe it might take two, because the person might not be that good with money. But you have to talk about it. You have to bring it in front of them, but in the right manner. Did I get your question correctly?
Yes, you did. I think like I also can go back to what Sher has mentioned when she talk about this episode, right? And that is if you don't address it right, then eventually it's going to come and bite you in the back.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't think like hiding behind like issues, right, is a very good way of addressing it, right? Because in the long run, it's just going to hurt you more, lah, right? So
Yeah.
like for you, sure, like what are some ways, right, where I guess like you feel uncomfortable, bringing up stuff maybe to Azan or maybe your friends. How do you best go about like addressing it? Let's say it's a topic which you feel like is very uncomfortable. But how do you like get yourself right to be able to talk about it in a very calm and open manner?
Yeah, so I think that most of the struggles that people face talking about money comes also because of how our friends and family and also society has painted financial talks to be such a scary, negative, and daunting thing. Like whenever we see our maybe our relatives, or like when we hear somebody else is talking about money and they're like, oh, we had the talk about money, and it sounds like such a bad thing that even the thought of it would make you feel like, I don't want to talk about it. That is why most partners just tiptoe around finances. And like you mentioned, after a while, you rake in such a big amount of debt, and then it becomes a big problem to solve. But before that, you could have had regular money talks, and you would have addressed the problem early on before it becomes such a huge mountain to solve. And so I think if you and I think one of the point that Azam said is that actually highlighted a point in my mind. I think money talks should be painted in a way that it should be talking about potentials more than problems. Like, for example, when you talk about, hey, if we solve this issue, this is what we could do with our money, how much more we can improve our life. Those dreams you want to achieve, we can achieve them because we are able to solve our finances well. So if you look at it as potentials, like, oh my God, this is all the things we can do if we sort out our finances, anyone will be more motivated to have those financial talks to manage their money better. Whereas if you paint it in the way that, hey, look at this, we have all these 10 problems and, how are we going to solve them? Or if you put blame on each other, it's because you did this and that, then money talk would always be something that is difficult to do, and eventually couples just avoid them altogether. So I think if you look at it as going back to my favorite word, opportunity to learn. So, or opportunity for you to reach that desired lifestyle that you want, then I think people would approach money talks and financial discussions more openly and embrace them.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
really like Sher and Azan how you guys are so positive on like things. Again, I think we have me and Aaron have repeatedly expressed our admiration for you guys to be able to frame things so positively. One of the things I took away from like you guys today, right, is like it's also kind of like the same thing as like investing. Right? When you see a problem, then you think of it not as a problem but an opportunity to actually learn and grow from it. And I think like just coming back on like how do you solve like kind of like these issues on like couples not being able to talk about finances calmly and openly. In the end of the day, like all these talks, I think you should frame it in a way like how it's not kind of like a problem assessment or risk assessment. It has to you want to frame it as like a kind of like a regular health checkup. So in the end, it's not something that's like difficult to go about. If that makes sense.
And if I can add one more thing to what Ryan said, so probably someone would think that we are always so optimistic, and we are just like positive people bouncing around. But I don't know about Azan, but for me, I look at it as being a realist more than an optimist, because just like that example that you gave, Ryan, about investing, I think if you look at something just pessimistic, you're just overwhelmed with emotions. Whereas if you are overly optimistic, you can also be overwhelmed with emotions. Like for me, I look at any situation slash problem as something that, okay, look here, I have something in front of me. What can I do with it? What can I take away from it? How can I make something good out of it? So based on that, I try to take away emotions that I think would cloud my judgment. I think not to say that I'm trying to just be a hollow, unemotional person entirely, but in trying to be a clear thinker, I think it really helps me. So for me, I think I approach everything. I try my best to from a like a realism perspective. Yeah, that's something I wanted to add.
I love it. It's like, but the thing with like couples, like some couples, they some people they are agreeable and some people they are not so agreeable. And like what I am, right, I'm like not I'm a very agreeable person. So like what I do is I tend to shy away from like conflict, right? And when I do have to talk about like finances like this with my partner, what I do is like I use the truth as kind of like the guiding star, because like it is hard to argue with the truth sometimes. So like I guess to answer the question, right, like how to talk about finances calmly and openly is to kind of like frame it so that it's not like a bad thing. It's kind of like just like a health checkup, and base your facts on base your arguments on kind of like the truth and facts of your state of your financial health.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I think end of the day, what you want from the outcome in being able to talk about it, right, is that end of the day when you do it in a very like open manner, it ends up being a net positive for the relationship, right? Because if you're able to share stuff openly, then eventually you're just going to be learn to trust each other more over time, right? Because I think that's always the first step. Sometimes it's a bit tough to take the leap of faith, but I always say that if you care enough about the person, then you should care enough about the relationship to take that leap of faith, even if it's scary at first. And sometimes, what you realize is that the person might surprise you with their, reaction, and that they might be also surprised, like, oh, okay, so we have this issue, and they might surprise you in a way that they actually like, they might actually like rise to the occasion and do something about it, right? So I think that level of trust, that level of openness does end up with a net positive effect, but it does take that first step to be a bit uncomfortable, because sometimes in new relationships, right, you're not sure whether or not how the person will react. So sometimes people will start to test a little bit here and there. But I realized that over time, right, good relationships are usually the ones, right, where you have very big matters at hand, right, where you address, and what you realize is that the person rise to the occasion. And I think sometimes it's because when you don't have the expectation, right, but they manage to do it, right, then that's where you end up trusting the person a lot more, lah. So that is one of the ways where you have to start from somewhere, lah. Like nobody goes from like 0 to 100 immediately. I would say that
It's a
it's not.
journey.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's not like something like overnight. Oh, suddenly, you never talk about this, right? Then suddenly you transit immediately to like a calm and open talk. It doesn't happen like that overnight. It takes a lot of time, effort, and most of all work, in order to get there. That you get to that safe space, lah. So it does take baby steps, so we can start talking about it and having open now, and that just give it time, and then eventually the best is that when you get there, both parties are happy, right? And then I guess like this goes on to the expression of the next topic and the question, right, is that sometimes, right, couples do have differing views, values, and financial literacy level. So I guess like the best way to address this is probably like maybe we can just ask this question to Sher and Azan, right? And that is like let's talk about the investment Tesla. Like how did both of you, right, come to the agreement to invest in that company, and not just and bearing in mind this particular company, right, is a huge portion of our portfolio because both of you have shared that. How did you like from Sher, right? She came from real estate, and from Azan, you came from a background of stock investing. How did you both come to agreement to invest in this company together and collaboratively?
Okay, this is something that I need to think about, because I think it's also. So I had more experience in stock investing in 2019 compared to Shireen. Okay. So the good thing about Shireen was this, that she was ready to learn from my mistakes. Okay. And my mistakes were these, that I was going after popular stocks, safe stocks, and I was following the herd mentality, and it had not done that great for me. It had done decent, but not that great. So I shared my experience with Shireen, and then we were like, hey, if we want to get outsized returns, we need to be the first, we need to be early in an investment. So we started searching. There were a couple of companies that came on our radar. One was Beyond Meat, one was Tesla, and another one was Square. Now, Beyond Meat and Tesla felt like, you could say, life changing opportunities, because at least Beyond Meat's mission is, you could say, big, just like Tesla's. But Tesla, when we did all our research, Tesla was doing the execution compared to Beyond Meat. It all came that, hey, our deciding factor was this, that, hey, you will only invest in a company that's executing on what it's saying, and I will only invest in a company that's executing on what they call they preach or they say, And Tesla felt like this company has been executing. Their plans felt like they will execute more than they've even, you can say, projected or told to the shareholders. And then all investing is some sort of speculation, so we had to take a risk. How did we end up putting so much money in Tesla? Like more than 90% of our money in Tesla. It was because we felt like, hey, this can become life changing. If we lose it all, okay, we can get back up. But if we feel like what Tesla will do in the next 5 years, we'll be in a different place. So this was a risk maneuver. We estimated Tesla will do 10x in the next 5 years. Tesla did 10x in the next 2 years, right? So it was beyond our expectations. But the courage to make a decision, the courage to be different, be contrarian, do not follow the herd, that stupid diversification, in assets, in stocks, avoided that, went for concentration, looked at what are the best investors really doing. Let's say Buffett. People think Buffett diversifies. He's actually the master of concentration. So follow that, went against the herd. Our mentality had developed like this, that, hey, it's good to be against the herd. We've been doing that for the last 5 years of our life. It has paid off. Why not do it in investing as well? And we were on the same page and we wanted to change our lives quickly. So we went for it. But there's so many factors involved at that time. It's very difficult to pinpoint something, But this was a journey. This was a mindset at that time. Shane, do you want to add?
Well, I think if I go back and address Aaron's question from the start about how does someone coming from a different, you can say, background be on the same page as another person coming from another background. I think there's two parts of it. Give me a second. I think there's two parts of it. I think I break it down into one, empathizing, and the other, proper reasoning. So what I mean by empathizing is that sometimes we knock it with our partners because we cannot understand why do they have a certain view about something that is obviously incorrect. Now, if you can understand where it came from, for example, you can understand that there were certain things that played out in their life or in their upbringing or in their experiences with managing money that led them to believe a certain way, then I think you can empathize with their what you call views, and also why they think those views are correct. I think that is a good starting point for you for both people to let their guards down and actually be more open to listening to something that is of an opposing view, empathy. And then on the second point is proper reasoning. So for example, like coming from the background of real estate investing, it wasn't easy first to go into the mindset of stock investing, and then second go into such concentrative mindset. And what really helped me make that shift was proper reasoning. Like what Azan has said, looking for great returns require you to do something that's differently from the herd, and that makes sense to me. So with that proper reasoning, it was easy for me to make that shift. So I think if you can empathize with the other person and you can also provide solid reasoning, take the time to explain to them why a certain thing is a good option, I think then, regardless of how different your views, your values, or your financial literacy level, you can come onto the same page and move ahead together financially.
And I think also what really helps, right, is that Azan, you made a very key point, is that respect for your partner's view. I think is something which everybody should take note and learn from. And that is, sometimes, right, conversations might be uncomfortable, but if you are able to respect your partner's point of view, right, then you can do as what Sher has mentioned, express it, and then um you respect them enough, right, to give them a chance to learn your point of view, right? And then I think that is like one of the ways, right, where if you come from a different like standpoint, right, but if you have that mutual respect for each other and you like honestly believe, right, that both parties, right, have something valuable to, and then the spirit is that you just want both parties to get better through expressing their view out of mutual respect, then eventually, I would say that not having the same view values or financially literacy value, right, coming back to the whole broad topic, is that you should see it as a positive instead of negative. Because if this is a relationship, right, which is something that is working, then if you have something which is of differing view, it is an opportunity, right, to grow from there, right? And that the end result is that both parties will probably learn something out of this, and both parties will grow. And eventually it might be a situation where both of you can see eye to eye. And then in fact, it's not just differing, but actually the both you might have skill sets, right, that actually complement and look at things in a different angle, right? Which is what successful couples do lah. Because sometimes even for my own case, right, I might have missed something very crucial in my assessment, right? But then my partner is able to actually spot it, which I didn't see. So I think that having that ability, right, to have that open conversation, right, and I would not say that differing views is not a bad thing. I can frame it in a good thing, and that allows you to actually see the issue at hand, right, in more than one view. Yeah, and in order for you to do that, right, you need to have respect for each other, to basically just respect, right, that it's okay to be different, but have faith, right, that you're able to look at the issue at hand and come out of it better as a couple.
Yeah, and all of this, right? I mean, it all makes sense, but if you don't have courage, you need to have courage to do these kind of things, making big decisions, taking big risks, and if you don't have it, you will miss out on these opportunities. Because honestly, there were many people I know that actually thought that Tesla was a great investing opportunity in 2019. Of course, majority were like, no, Tesla's going to go bankrupt. But a lot of them did say that it was a great investing opportunity, but did not put the dollar to it. So in the end, courage needs to be there, and you have to, take big risks to to achieve these kind of returns. And sometimes both partners need to be like that. Both partners need to be courageous, or try to be courageous to get these kind of results. Because if one partner is and the other partner is pessimistic and one partner is too optimistic, then it's highly likely that you will go forward with the decision. That's why both partners need to be fully immersed in that discussion or in that research. That hey, so that come to make a valid choice. That hey, yeah, for us it would be Tesla is the one. It's not Beyond Meat. Tesla is the one to put in most of our money. Tesla is the right company to bet on. But these are very difficult things. It's very easy to say in words. The journey, of doing something like that is really hard, not easy.
I would say, like, just like investing and money and your career, right? A successful relationship is not something which you get overnight. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of time, faith, effort, and a lot of work in order for it to like get to a stage where you're able to trust each other amicably to address hard issues. And that comes with a lot of practice, a lot of deliberate, intentional effort that you both put in, right? And I guess this is also like something which we will segue to the next question. The next question is it's a very funny question, but I guess I find it difficult to frame this without being too negative about it, right? And essentially,
just say
it's
it as
about,
the way it is.
it's about like
sexist.
yeah, it's about like gold diggers. Are they really that bad?
I can say it for you.
Right? Gold diggers, are they really that bad? And from the female's point of view, right, being financially stable are good traits, for women. And how do you build a relationship, right? And I guess this woman is coming from a standpoint, right, where she values financial stability, but she finds it very difficult to do that, right, when the partner is not well off, right? So that leads to like gap of differences in values and drive. And then she also does mention like women generally do like to being pampered and being provided for. And I guess like the question is whether or not how do you like, if you're a person, right, who wants to do well, but the partner is not like, maybe, maybe this person just doesn't, innately have that trait or ability to reach the level that you want, then how do you move on from there?
So it's a extremely funny and full of assumptions question. Because like how do I like divide? There's too many questions actually. Okay, first let's do gold diggers. Are they bad? Like I don't want to talk about gold diggers, but what I want to say is this: that if in any capacity you have to impress your partner, or your partner wants you to impress them, that there is something wrong with your partner and you, because the art of impressing someone or the need of getting impressed is not a healthy need, not a healthy trait. So that's my answer for gold diggers. Another thing, how does the biology of women who like being pampered and provided for, like this is just an assumption. There is no nothing in biology says that there's some women who like to be pampered and provided for. It's just your choice. You want to be pampered and you want to be provided for. It's also, I'm sorry to say, but a sign of lack of, you could say, self empowerment. And lack of taking action and lack of responsibility and accountability. I know this happens a lot in the Southeast Asian culture where I've seen a lot of relationships where the woman is like, hey, I like you, I love you because you provide for me. Even our friends, some of our, like, not friends, but acquaintances are like that. But this is just completely, plainly wrong. It has got nothing to do with the biology. It's just a lack of responsibility, accountability, and lack of, the need for being in control. I mean, it's laziness as well. There could be many things that come out of it. But another question is broadly, woman loves a guy who's not well off and doesn't have drive, and whether it's worth to stay for love versus leaving and being classified as a gold digger. The thing is, a relationship is not based on what your partner, let's say, whether your partner is well off or not. The question you should say, right, hey, you should think, like, hey, why can't I work with this guy and become well off together? Rather than just relying on this guy that, hey, because he's not well off, so maybe I don't stay in a relationship. The question is, hey, if you love each other and if you are completely into each other, you share good values, then become well off together. It doesn't matter whether in the beginning you or the other partner doesn't drive a good car or not. This is just wrong mentality, of saying that there's certain roles only men play and there's certain roles only women play, whereas where like men needs to provide for. This is like what the like old age mentality, or things have changed. And yes, it's true, Southeast Asia and even South Asia still thinks this way, a lot of them, but it needs to be changed. So in short, no, if you need to impress a partner, or if you want to be impressed, there's something wrong with you and your partner. And secondly, if you go into a relationship because you feel like this person will provide for me, please don't have kids, because you're not going to teach them the right things. You're not going to teach them accountability, responsibility, being on your own feet, respecting yourself. Sorry, it's a little harsh, but that's the way it is. I won't feel like that I've done you justice until I tell you, how it really is. All right, Shireen, your turn to get cancelled.
Well, I look at this question, and like I would address it in two parts. So I think the first part of it, the first good part of it is, instead of, okay, probably the word gold digger here has a really negative connotation, but let's simply put it as the female is looking out for good financial traits in her partner. Okay. So I think the first part I want to address is that if your partner is not well off, it is that is not the problem. The problem is the issue of the drive, as mentioned here in the question. If your partner has issues in their drive, that can be a problem, because you can start off from zero, or close to zero. But if you have the interest to grow and you're ready to put in the action, you will be in a financially better position eventually, whether alone or whether with your partner. But if the problem is in a drive, how can you possibly ignite drive in a person when they don't even want to do it themselves? So that is a very important question to ask, because in the end of the day, you can't really blame a person for not being well off most of the time. If they come from a really difficult background financially, they do not have the means to pursue further education, and they do not end up in a position where they can actually earn a better income. So they might not be in the best financial position, and that's okay. But the most important thing is, can you take the steps to improve your financial situation? So I think that's the first part that I want to address. The issue is in the drive, not being well off. And the second part of the question, I think, when it comes to women being pampered and provided for, I think if I try to address the core, I think in the end you can say that it is the desire for financial security. So if your desire is to be financially secure, you don't actually need another individual to do that for you. You can do that yourself. Of course, if you end up being with another person and you become financially stronger, that's only a plus. But on your own, you can attain that financial security. You don't have to rely on the other person, because reliance is never a good thing. It just puts you in a very tough position, because what if the relationship doesn't work out? Then your financial security goes away entirely. I think it's really addressing those two things. If you're looking for a financially stable partner, it's not like it's a bad thing. But if just say your problem is that they are not well off, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is more about their drive and the values that they have. And second thing, being provided of should be addressed on an individual level. Yeah, that's my point of view.
Yeah, I actually love your responses, because like if harsh is what you're describing your responses, this is exactly what I'm looking for, like the cold hard truth. Because like I think fundamentally this question, right? It's not to say like and also don't worry about getting cancelled, because what I'm about to say is kind of like going to get me cancelled. So
No, don't do that. This is your podcast.
So, guys, after this episode, we will see you in 10 years, because apparently we're going to get cancelled. It's our last episode. Thank you for tuning in.
No, but like I think like fundamentally this question has a lot of like aspects where there's a lot of appearances you're trying to keep up. So like things like labeling yourself like a as a gold digger, or labeling yourself as like a woman. Because like I think in a different context, in like say the Western countries, stay-at-home dads are also like a very common thing, you know. And if like say you hear about people from Southeast Asia being a stay-home dad, they usually get looked down upon. But I think it all depends on like the circumstances of like the couple was going through. Whether the person is actually is there a reason as to why there's like no drive? Is there a reason why he's not looking for work? And the problem is not whether the person is like whether the person has like a job, or he's not well off, like what Shireen said. There's always probably some reason as to why they are subjecting themselves into certain circumstances. And like I would say like try to find out what the reason is. Like if generally the problem is like laziness, or like maybe like lack of information or like education on certain aspects, like how to write a resume per se to get a job, or maybe like how to invest so that you get like better returns. So like you gotta be like patient with them, and like teach them, educate them, and that's how like you kind of like grow together as a couple. But
I actually want to add something, Brian, over here.
yeah,
Because the idea that there's some really dangerous statements in this question: how to build a relationship when partner is not well off. And how does the biology of women who like being pampered and provided for? Now, this is coming from a woman, and do you know, like, this is just a question: are you aware how many people, whether they're elders or females, and even boys, think like this, that yes, I need to provide for the girl and the girl needs pampering? In Malaysia, possibly 60-70%. It's everywhere. It's a very dangerous mindset, because future generation future kids, especially the girls, think it this way then as well, that hey, okay, yeah, man has to provide, I need to be pampered, a man that provides for me, I love him and I care for him, and that's it. Like the future generation is going to be what you call, you could say, poor as well in terms of mindset. So what do you guys think? Like, isn't this a societal and cultural thing? You know, I don't think it's a one-off thing. I think much of the country, let's say in this case Malaysia, is full of this.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of like not just Malaysia, but rather like an Asian thing
Yeah,
where like
even
they
in
have this.
South Asian countries, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the girl stays at home, become the homemaker and all that. And like when the roles are reversed, it becomes like a very different situation where like the guy becomes like a really unsuccessful, not respectable and all that. But I do agree with you, like this is like a very dangerous mindset. In the end of the day, right, I think within couples, in the context of like a family, it doesn't matter who earns more, it doesn't matter who's the breadwinner, it doesn't matter um whether you're male or female, because in the grand scheme of things of working towards like a better financial future or like a better future for the family or the both of you, you know it doesn't matter you're a female or you're a man. It doesn't matter if like you're a gold digger or not, because like if you reverse the roles, I'm kind of like a gold digger myself, right? I like to chase money, but I know it's tiring, it's not exactly the most healthy thing, but like I do chase like for bigger numbers in my net worth. I do chase for like stocks or like crypto, better investment performance. So like if you reverse the roles, it's kind of like, I'm also a gold digger, but like in that sense.
Yeah, no, actually, I have to disagree with you on this because I'll tell you why. Because what you're saying is in terms of like going towards investments, but the question over here is actually depicting the thinking of, let's say, a human being, where like they say that hey, basically, what you call, how to build a relationship when a partner is not well off. Basically, they're saying hey, you can only build a relationship when a partner is well off, or then saying how does the biology of women, what about the biology of women who like being pampered and provided for? Basically, this individual is saying that, hey, this is the reality of women. They like to be pampered and provided for, most of them at least. So this is a completely different thing than going after, let's say, investments and money. This is basically saying that, hey, the fact is, women like to be pampered and they like to be provided for. And that's the issue where this comes from, either societal conditioning or culture or, like years of or like upbringing.
Generational thing, right? Like generational values being passed down to the next generation.
Yeah. So I mean, if things stay like this, it's just like a country doesn't move forward, society doesn't move forward, and the problem is relationships are just going to be shallow, and they will never reach their full potential. Can I share an example to you?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
There's a story that we know, me and Shireen. It's just similar to this. The question gets asked the girl, why are you with this guy? Because he provides for me and takes buys me things and takes care for me. That's why I'm with this guy. Okay, that's why I want to love him. The guy asked for the girl's marriage. The mom asked for a property in Singapore and a property in Johor. Okay, because this is a mentality. You have to provide. The guy has to provide. The girl needs to get this. This is the mentality. Like, hey, I need that bag every week. I need that bag every month. This is why I love you for. This is why I am with you. And we've heard this many times that this is how relationships should be. Forget making money. Forget what you call be getting ahead financially. You will never. You will just not have a good relationship. The purpose of your relationship is flawed because of bad values, bad upbringing, and then just imagine what the kids will turn out to be.
I like to view this question as a parent. I think that's like the best way I can address this question at hand, right? Is that if I have daughters of my own, how would I fundamentally raise them to be, people in society? Lah? And my take is very simple, and that is if I ever have daughters, right? Eventually, I do wish that my daughters can be achieve financial independence themselves, because that will allow them to retain the option of being able to decide for themselves, without being dependent on someone else to make a decision. That's always something which I strive for on myself, and I definitely will not expect any less if I have daughters, right? Because I think what's very dangerous is that if you depend on someone, and then you get into a relationship, right? Particularly for this, then it becomes a very like negative, like transactional type of relationship, right?
Yeah.
So especially if you're going to be with this person for like a very long period of time, right? Over time, materialism just loses its luster. The toy stops becoming shiny. The car, the houses, all this, right, decays over time. But what will stay with you eventually is the person's character, the person's values, and whether or not you feel emotionally secure with the person, whether or not the person is there for you during your downtimes, and whether or not and basically your happiness with this person, was it born out of materialism or emotional connection? And that is something which I find is not very highly valued, unfortunately, in the Asian culture lah. Because there's this like Southeast Asian culture of like being like they like to compare stuff, they like to like image competitiveness lah, which I do feel is very toxic in the grand scheme of things, right? Because you're like it's like you are showcasing the wrong things lah, I feel, in the relationship, because eventually over time all this decay. And what you're left with, right, end of the day, is just you and the person. And if you need external stimulus, right, which the person cannot provide, I think that's a red flag eventually. Because I find that, if both parties, right, are fundamentally people who can grow, then I find that you don't really need a lot of things in a relationship for you to be a happy person, right? Because that's what I've noticed amongst very happy couples. And usually the happiest couples are usually the people who are very simple. They're very, very simple. They don't have like grand like things in life. They basically will just go and eat. Maybe their happy moments are, and usually the things that brings them the greatest joy, all right, it has nothing to do with how expensive the thing that has been spent on, but rather the time that they spend with each other in that moment.
True.
Right, and that's what I've noticed, and that's something which money cannot buy, because it cannot, like, money can give you options, right? It gives you options, but you cannot replace that that feeling of like emotional like support that you have for one another. And most importantly, what Azan has mentioned is that feeling of respect that you have for the other partner. And I think that level of respect for each other is something which you must have in a healthy relationship. Because if you are respecting the person as a person, it's very fundamentally different than if you're respecting the person just because the person has money. Yeah. So like I do feel that this question, although it's harsh, but I do feel it's a very important question, because it really does address a lot of Southeast Asian culture itself, right? Where fortunately in Singapore, right, we don't really have a lot of this, because everybody was brought up on the fact that women and men are both expected to work. We don't really have a lot. I mean, we might have, but from personal experience, right, in Singapore, it's not really a huge problem. It's not as bad as Japan, lah. Let's put it this way, lah. Japan is quite bad, lah. Like if you go to Japan, right, then you will notice that most women over there are homemakers, and you very rarely see like if they have children, they actually like work. But that's like slowly turning. But in Singapore, I think we've been pretty progressive in like ensuring that women are given like proper rights in terms of like choosing their career path and things like that. And in fact, stay-home dads in Singapore, it's not that uncommon. It's not very uncommon to see women in Singapore out-earning men. It's actually quite a common thing.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem is there's actually no problem in being a homemaker. It's okay to be a homemaker. The problem is believing that you should be pampered, or believing that it's only men that need to provide for a woman. It's just that, that changes what you call everything. But yeah, that's the end of our question, right?
That's the last question. Like, it's been a very long session, but I think we definitely have a lot of like huge positive takeaways. I hope this doesn't end up being like the episode on Netflix where we cause a lot of breakups to happen in relationships. Because I think we
conversations.
No, it's actually, what's so surprising, right? And we have all also accepted it, that whatever our views are and the way we live and the way our relationship is, right? It's actually a anomaly for most people. It's an anomaly, and people think that, like it's too much. But then, like I said, this is what has served us. So, like you do you, and if something else works for you, then it's great. We're happy for you. But if there are problems, then the solutions are usually related to growth, and growth is scary, and growth is tough. So you need to make a choice. Are we at the end of this podcast,
Yeah,
or
we're at like
there's actually something me and Shane wrote yesterday that we thought maybe we'll share with you guys. Okay, it's like
oh, please
our
go ahead.
relationship. It's like six of our like simple relationship rules that we live by.
Go ahead, please share with them. I'm pretty sure our listeners would love to hear them.
So the first one is never sleep with anger. The second one is not 50%, 100% all the time. The third one is that your love is not invincible, so take care of it, nurture it. Fourth one is speak up to your partner. Do not trade short term comfort for long term problems. The fifth one is that in public, stay united, stay one. All the disagreements should be discussed in private. And the last one is create more space between each other to be missed. That's it.
But I definitely can relate to all of them. In fact, thanks for sharing that. Anything you would like to add yourself, sure?
I think Azan said a lot just now about the last question, and like I think like just to hopefully not too depressing to end the podcast this way, but like I think just wanted to share like a female's point of view. I think I hear too many sad stories unfortunately about women regretting their lives, wanting to do something different, but had to stay in a relationship because they did not have the financial means to do so. And I think as just as a female, I thankfully I've been encouraged a lot by my parents to stand on my feet financially. And I think that if a person, actually regardless of male or female, like to be fair, if you want to look out for yourself, you should always try to do that on your own. And then anything else on top of that gets brought in relationship becomes a plus. I think that's just something I wanted to add for just from a female point of view. Yeah. And thanks to Azam for sharing the rules that we live by, that we try to remind ourselves, we try to remind each other to live by. Not 100% and perfect all the time, but we try to do our best. And I think it has helped us a lot. Yeah.
I'll definitely be implementing it in my life because I actually do like them. I do practice some of them myself, at least subconsciously. I think it's important. How about you, Ryan? Any last thoughts before we end off the session?
Yeah, I think the discussion we had around money and couples today is a very fruitful one. Really, thank you, Azan and Sher, for coming onto the podcast and sharing your very contrarian views. Because I think like being brave enough to share these kind of views takes a lot of guts and hard things that are like truthful things that are like really difficult to talk tends to be like harshest things. Something like one of the last few questions we got just now. And yeah, I really appreciate how you guys are so honest and truthful when you guys share your views like this, which ultimately helps our listeners. So thank you very much.
Thank you to you for inviting us and giving us your platform, actually. And like I said, we can do this again on different topics because, we love you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, man, we definitely love you guys. That's why we always enjoy talking to you guys. Whether or not is it on this platform, whether or not is it Instagram, we definitely should catch up again. Once I'm in Malaysia coming this year.
Yeah, December. I think we'll be back in
Definitely.
December as well.
Yeah, it's kind of
And
crazy that we've never met each other, but we're still able to like
Yeah.
develop that friendship. Man, the technology these days is just
Looking
amazing.
forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been the RA to Normal podcast, and the topic is couples and money, episode 10. Probably a topic that is unfortunately not well addressed enough in investment content, lah. But I'm glad that we're able to finally do this, right? Because it's a long time coming, and we hope they definitely appreciate both Sher and Azan just like me and Ryan have. And definitely, if you have any questions for them, you can just post them probably when this podcast is out. I think end of this month, right? And then we'll definitely see them again, maybe next episode, or who knows. If you like them, then of course please do not forget to follow them on Instagram at We Are Money Darlings. They definitely also write very valuable insights into investments as well as in relationship, as well as they even have like a article you can subscribe to on Substack, which I definitely get in my mail every now and then because Sure just writes amazing content, right? And of course, you can find Ryan on Foods and Stongs, and for me, I'm on Instagram at Aaron Goes Global. And thanks so much, guys, for tuning in today, and we'll see you in our next episode.